Welcome, everyone, to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect and the Shepherd of Black Sheep, Jared Mello. I'm late, per usual, but I'm glad to see there's a bunch of people in the chat already waiting for me. I apologize for making you all wait. But today, what we're going to go over here is the crazy case of what on earth happened to Nancy Guthrie. Nancy Guthrie is the mother of Savannah Guthrie. She's the co-host of NBC's morning show today, and I think she lives in Arizona. And boom, one day she's here, the next day disappeared. Cat, this is my only wizard attire, Cat. Let's see here. Can make sure we're set up. But Sarah, how are you? Brenda, how are you? Kat, how are you? Yeah, they took the door cam, or the ring cam, they call it. Yes, Sarah has a good eye over there. Yes, she does. But Brian Etten, he's got a couple good videos on this. And our friend Maureen's here too. Blue today, Kat. Pretty soon I'm going to make some custom. I'm going to ask my friend who's a glass blower to make us all some custom wands. How about that? How about them apples? How are you all today, though? Brenda says, yes, that's crazy. It's been over 3 days and no information from that company. Ness, I think it's called. Wow. Insane stuff here, right?
Hey guys, thanks so much for checking out my show. I really, really appreciate it. Please click to subscribe. I am in Tucson, Arizona. This right here behind me, this is Nancy Guthrie's house. Of course, she is the mother.
Oh, and by the way, I reached out to Savannah Scott today, and she got back to me. Lo and behold, she actually messaged me on Instagram before this anyway, because she wanted a clip or a link to the full interview with Dr. Salerno, the debate between Dr. Eatonson and Dr. Salerno. So turns out she was much closer to me than I ever thought she was. But we're going to try to set something up if we can get our schedules aligned. But this is my question for you all. Would you rather have it be a recorded interview, or would you like to have her with me going over some videos, perhaps? Let me know in the chat. 1, recorded video. 2, invite her on the live stream.
The 84-year-old mother of Savannah Guthrie, the Today Show host. She is still missing, but we're learning some new information about what may have happened here. And I'm going to get into a ton of the new nuggets that we've uncovered out here in this episode. I mean, there's blood up on the front doorstep, which we've now seen. The ring camera on the front door is missing, which I asked the sheriff about. And then there are these ransom notes that are now popping up, which have become part of the story, which the sheriff is also commenting on. I was just over at the sheriff's office. So I'm going to give you the latest from the sheriff's office. I'm going to give you the latest on what the neighbors are saying out here. And I've talked to several of them, what we've seen at the house, which is no longer a crime scene. And then I'm also going to talk to retired FBI agent Maureen O'Connell about a lot of this stuff. So all of it's coming up. It's going to be a really comprehensive episode on the ground here in Arizona in this episode of Brian Etten Investigates. All right, hey guys.
Danielle, did you hear that? Your girl, Maureen. And someone gave me Maureen's contact information the other day. I'm going to try to reach out to her to get her on the program too.
I'm sitting in the shade here. It's like really sunny here in Tucson. But again, that's Nancy Guthrie's house. Right there behind me, there's a ton of media out here that have pretty much just like camped out all up and down the street. First of all, before I start giving you the latest information, I just want to say that my heart goes out to Nancy Guthrie's family and Savannah Guthrie. And it's just, it's heart-wrenching. And I think anybody...
So one more sidebar here before we get into the serious topic. So Kat was making me think about White Rabbit the other day, which also made me think of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas about Hunter S. Thompson. And he had that line where he said, when you look west from a hilltop in Las Vegas with the right kind of eyes, you can see the high watermark of where the hippies kind of in their revolution hit the high watermark and then receded back. And that was, while that was playing, the song was playing was Come Together Now by the Youngbloods. Also, there's a cool version of Somebody to Love when he's in the bathroom and does whatever drug he does. Pretty cool movie, especially if you're a classic rock fan. But that's the last sidebar. Now to the serious topic.
You know, with a mom, can relate to how they would feel in this situation, and just how terrible it is. And I can't imagine what they're going through right now. So I really hope there's a positive resolution to all of this. But in terms of the latest on the case, I was just over at the sheriff's office. We got a briefing from the sheriff. He was much more tight-lipped today than he was yesterday. You know, yesterday he did like dozens of interviews and talked to all of us and all of the networks. It seemed to give different bits of information to different reporters. And today he just said that, you know, he was not going to be giving as much information, and almost made like a comment like, you know, I apologize if I said some things I shouldn't have yesterday. I mean, I think he was just talking off the cuff a lot yesterday. He talked a couple times about what his gut was telling him. And I think some of what he said was reported as fact and they don't necessarily have it all backed up. That's kind of the sense that I got. But he has said that this was a kidnapping or abduction and that Nancy Guthrie was taken in the middle of the night from her home here, but did not go much farther than that today.
So abducted, taken in the middle of the night. There's blood at the house that they assume is Nancy Guthrie's, but they don't know much about it at this point. They've gotten a couple ransom notes. One of them they showed to Savannah Guthrie. It was asking for a large amount of Bitcoin. They said, if you send it, we'll return her home safely. I have my doubts. She's safe, though, unfortunately.
I want to show you guys this drone video that we got out here because this really shows you what this area is like. And before I got here, when I first started reading about the story, it almost made it sound like almost like a suburban neighborhood, but it's not really. I mean, it's much more rural out here. We're in the foothills of the mountains, and the homes are pretty far apart. I would say each house is on at least an acre. Some seem like they're on a couple of acres out here. There's just cactus and just open land in between a lot of the houses. And there's not a lot of, there's no street lights, by the way. I mean, it's pitch black out here. So, you know, if she was taken in the middle of the night, it would have been totally dark. There are not a lot of cameras, although we have been looking around and there are some houses that have Ring cameras facing out towards the street. But one thing that I've noticed is that the houses are set back a ways on the bigger pieces of property. So even if they have cameras, they're not necessarily right out on the street. Although we have seen a couple out near the street, and there are also traffic cameras out at some of the main intersections outside this subdivision. I don't know if those traffic cameras record. We don't know exactly what police know right now. And they based on the press conference, they know very little, and they need the public's help. But as we've seen in cases before, even with Brian Koberger in the beginning, so many of us thought the police knew very little because they weren't saying anything or they were telling us they didn't know anything, but they actually knew a lot behind the scenes. That could be the case here. I mean, why are they not giving any specific information about a vehicle that they're looking for? Is it because they don't know what the vehicle is, or is it because they know and they don't want the perpetrator to know that they know the vehicle type? So I don't know the answer to whether they know a ton more, but based on the press conference and what the sheriff was saying, they know very little right now, and they need help from the public. In terms of ransom, have they gotten any requests for ransom from a kidnapper? We asked that question specifically at the press conference, and the sheriff kind of just dodged it. He didn't say yes or no. He said, said something like, we're looking into every lead out there. So he didn't say yes or no, but what's interesting is first TMZ reported that they received a ransom letter into their email.
Can you believe that? TMZ is important enough to be getting ransom letters, which is pretty wild. So it's almost like they want coverage of the case, whoever did this.
And said that it had specific information in it, a specific dollar amount, and also had specific information in terms of describing what Nancy Guthrie was wearing, and also specific information from inside the house. Whether any of that's true, we don't know. I mean, it could just be totally bogus. Who knows? It could be people just, sending info in, fake, you know what I mean, making it up, like just to try to get get money, just jerks out there. There's also a local TV affiliate here in Tucson that says that they've received a ransom note. And the sheriff's office actually responded. Let me read this to you. And said they responded to some of these reports about ransom notes and said, we are aware of reports circulating about possible ransom notes regarding the investigation into Nancy Guthrie. We are taking all tips and leads very seriously. Anything that comes in goes directly to our detectives who are coordinating with the FBI, and they're encouraging anyone with information to continue to reach out. In terms of the FBI is very much now involved. And that's a new element. We knew that they were assisting yesterday. They are very much assisting today because when we were at the press conference earlier, there was the FBI special agent in charge of this Tucson area who was actually at the press conference. That could also explain why police aren't, or why the sheriff isn't saying as much. Usually I find that when the FBI gets involved, they really seem to clamp down on.
So the FBI is involved in this case now too. The sheriff apparently was doing a lot of talking at the press conference, and then he went on a lot of podcasts. He might have gotten some pushback for that, but now he's being a little more close to the vest.
On just other members of law enforcement speaking out about the investigation. So there's definitely a sense today that there's not as much information coming out. And the sheriff even said at the end of the press conference that they're not going to have another press conference until Thursday unless there's an update, which I thought was kind of interesting because it's only Tuesday. Also new, one of my photographers was able to walk up to the house behind me. And keep in mind, this is no longer a crime scene. I mean, the sheriff made clear that it is no longer a crime scene, that they released it yesterday, and there hasn't really been anyone out here. There was a woman who came earlier today. I don't know if it was a family member, but anyway, several different people, including one of my photographers, went up to knock on the door just to see if anyone was home, because obviously that's like what we do, and it's no longer a crime scene.
So the real Zarp, thank you for sharing this. They sent it to TMZ because the police told the local media not to report on it, and they complied. They knew TMZ doesn't care, true, and would report it. I 100% think the ransom note is real for that reason. And that's plausible to me.
And you could see up at the door, this video, you could see that there was blood down near the doormat and just on the ground near the entryway into the house, which is pretty disturbing. There had been reports that there was blood found at the house, and it's pretty clear that this is blood right outside the front door.
So look, that's where the ring cam used to be right there. They took it. But you would think also there should be footage. It's also recording to a computer or something. I'm not exactly sure how ring cams work, but I imagine you can still get the footage even if they take the physical device. Let me know if I'm wrong about that, chat. But again, if they broke in, if they knew to do this, they probably wanted to take all of the video surveillance with them, right?
Where the blood came from, what this means, we don't know. Also, the ring camera is missing from next to the front door. You can see where there's a plate where there appears that there was a ring camera, but the ring camera is now gone. And I asked the sheriff about that at the press conference. I said, you know, there's a missing ring camera, and he confirmed that and said it is something that we're looking into. So did the perpetrator take the ring camera, or was the ring camera removed before all of this and has nothing to do with what happened? That's a possibility. But the sheriff said that they are aware that the ring camera is missing and they are looking into it, which is another.
So George, where did you hear this? Because this looks interesting. The CEO of the ring cam company was supposed to pull the footage, they said. But where is the footage? Damn good question. But again, maybe they're just not letting it out right now because they don't want to ruin the case. Maybe they don't want to ruin the ransom/suspect. And again, they got to be really careful what they release right now because they have to act as if she's alive. So they don't want to bumble things in a way that can cost her her life. And again, they got to really walk a fine line here, I think. But it's not a sure thing that she has passed away for sure. It certainly makes it very iffy with her medication that she doesn't have. So we got to hope for the best here.
Another interesting element to this whole thing. Beyond that, there was not a ton of new information that came out of the sheriff today. Basically, just continuing to ask the public for help, the neighbors. I want to play for you, actually. There's one neighbor that we spoke to, and she had a good point of how the police should be talking to landscapers in the area because they know the area really, really well.
So put out on the news, anybody who was a landscaper or does yard work, they're familiar with the desert and they go into people's homes all the time. And I told my guy today, I said, you know, you guys see things that are unusual, like clothes or anything. You need to, and he didn't even know about it, but he spoke English very well. So I think there's.
Honestly, of all the people that we cover, Brian Etten and Maureen are two of my favorites by far. Law and Crime Network, I also like. And, you know, Tony Bruschi, I don't think he lies or anything. He's a little theatrical, but I think he's okay. But Maureen and Brian Etten, I think if you want no BS, you go to them. That's my experience so far in the true crime space. Now, that doesn't mean they're the only ones that are no BS, but to me, they're quick, direct, and to the point. No BS. No, let's just hunt for views and attention. So I respect that. I respect both of them.
Should be some kind of it's a little late.
So neighbors are obviously on edge about everything that's going on. Again, several of the neighbors have told us that police have came to their house not just once, but 2 or 3 times asking for video, asking for information. So they're definitely canvassing this entire area and trying to get any info that they can. But keep in mind also, by the way, we're just like 60 miles or so from Mexico. So that's kind of another interesting element to this. And we know that CBP, Customs and Border Patrol, was assisting with the search yesterday because they have really, really highly skilled search dogs that can follow scents. So they were out here yesterday helping. The sheriff says that they're no longer assisting now, just that there's not an active search, which is kind of interesting. When we asked, well, why isn't there a search? The sheriff said, well, this is less about a search at this point, and it is more about investigating a crime. So they seem pretty much 100% sure that a crime occurred. In terms of Savannah Guthrie, she is still in Tucson. She's here. The sheriff confirmed that. NBC has confirmed that she's not going to be going to the Olympics to participate and co-host in the opening ceremonies, which is, I mean, pretty obvious that she wouldn't want to leave when her mom is missing and all of this is going on. But again, my heart just goes out to her, and it's just a terrible situation out here. I'm joined now by Maureen O'Connell, who,
There's our girl, Maureen. But before I get into that, they said Savannah broke her silence, and there was a USA Today article about it. I want to tell you what she said. Sitting beside her sister, Annie Guthrie, and brother Cameron Guthrie, Savannah Guthrie said, "We too have heard the reports about a ransom letter in the media." As she continued, she appeared to speak directly to a possible kidnapper, telling them, "We need to know without a doubt that she's alive and that you have her." The trio also shared messages of love for their 84-year-old mom. Reminds me of the Silence of the Lambs, when the senator or wherever she was talking to Hannibal Lecter about the daughter that Hannibal Lecter didn't have. Buffalo Bill had her. She goes on, "We will not rest. Your children will not rest until we are together again," Savannah Guthrie vowed. "We don't know where Nancy Guthrie is," Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos said in a press conference Tuesday, February 3rd. Nanos reiterated the mission in an interview the following day. "We want to find Nancy first and foremost, and we want to find her alive." Investigators believe Nancy Guthrie, who has limited mobility, was taken from her home outside Tucson, Arizona, after receiving a 911 call reporting she was missing on Sunday, February 1st. So watch Savannah's full video in the nearly 4-minute video posted to Instagram the evening of February 4th. That's today. Maybe we should watch that real quick too. Phew. So you want me to watch her thing really quick here? Savannah Guthrie. Okay. Yeah. So we'll play this first, and then we'll go to what Savannah said.
Follow my show. Everybody knows Maureen and loves Maureen, retired FBI agent, and Jeff Bennett, one of Maureen's colleagues, who is new to the show. Thank you for coming on, Jeff, who is also a newly retired FBI agent. I want to start with you, Maureen. This video that we got of the blood spatter outside the front door. What do you make of that?
Well, a couple of things jump out to me. The first being that there aren't any bloody footprints. And if she had been bleeding like that through the house, we would have seen bloody footprints, or perhaps a void where there's blood around the foot, but not under where her feet would have been. It leads me to think that there is a chance that she may have been carried out. Also, the blood droplets are generally round in shape, which means that they came from directly above, as opposed to being cast off. They don't appear to have anything to do with high velocity impact or anything like that. So it makes me very sad to see that.
Are you surprised that it's still there? Because the crime scene is over. It's all opened back up. We just went to knock on the door and saw the blood there.
No.
Is that the usual?
No, I mean, I was at a shooting one time where when the Bureau got done with it, there was such a large amount of blood that we just power washed it off, but only because the shooting happened to occur in one of those stalls for a car wash. So when we looked around and they're like, is this a biohazard or whatever? I said, well, I've got 75 cents. And I just put it in the machine and just power washed it off, and it was done. That was after, obviously, they're going to have to photograph it. They're going to have to measure or put a good enough scale in there, meaning a ruler, so that they can determine exactly what size the droplets are, what directionality, where they point, and reference photographs, all kinds of stuff like that. Once they do that, and they do sample testing. So you'll notice in those blood, they're different colors. Like one of them appears to have a lot more brown in it. Some of them appear to be more red. Are those from two different individuals? I don't think so. If I'm looking at who the potential offender is for this, it's probably a young male, and she is an 84-year-old lady with health issues. My guess is it's going to be her blood, but we could be wrong. I doubt it, though. And so you're not just going to test the blood in one spot. You're going to test it in a number of spots, anything that looks different. And you just have to do a sampling that's good enough to stand up in court to say that we did our due diligence and we looked at every angle that we possibly could, and this is what we came up with. So they'll be testing all that blood. The sheriff already said in a podcast late last night that he was submitting that for rush and it's rapid DNA, but he's sending it to the lab for a rush. So they'll know. They know already whose blood that is. I'm sure they know, and I'm relatively sure it's hers.
Jeff,
so there's blood at the scene. They're relatively sure that it's Nancy Guthrie's, unfortunately, because let's face it. If a younger male, and there might be multiple younger males doing this entire thing, and how hard is it going to be for them to overpower an 84-year-old woman? Not very hard. It kind of almost reminded me of when I was talking to Mike King about Danny Troyer. Danny Troyer was the serial killer that targeted the elderly. Now, as far as we know, that's not what happened here. But similar concept.
Outside the house right now, actually, we were able to confirm that there are signs of forced entry. Have you ever seen a case like this? I mean, 84-year-old woman appears to just vanished.
It's pretty unusual, especially here in the United States. We see these types of cases out of the country that are ransom cases where the family who resides here in the U.S. gets ransom calls for their family who was kidnapped overseas. But I can't recall even one that matches the fact pattern of this case. And to go back to the blood question you had earlier, I also think it's significant, and I can't tell from the video, but I assume the blood droplets stopped somewhere, and that would suggest that a vehicle would be involved. And if a vehicle is involved, then I'm assuming the investigators are looking for a vehicle. And so when you start to chase video, you may be looking for a video around a specific time.
What do you think they're doing behind the scenes right now, Jeff, in terms of the FBI? Because the FBI Assistant Special Agent in Charge was at the press conference today, which he wasn't there yesterday. I mean, there was a feeling today like the FBI is really coming into this now. What do you think they're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you from firsthand experience over many years, and many cases like this, if not hundreds of cases like this. This is a whodunit case. Although it's high profile, this is a typical whodunit case.
And whodunit, for the people not in the police detective world, the murder police, is when they really just have no leads. There are no leads about it. It's a stone cold whodunit. They talk about this in the show The Wire. That's all of the detective's worst nightmare, is a stone cold whodunit, because it's really hard to get them in the black from the red. That's what they call it when they solve a murder. It goes from the red to the black. So that's what's going on here. Now, there's a new video Brian Etten made we're going to go over next, where he talks to someone in the video that's going to go to police with information that she saw people casing the neighborhood. So maybe that has something to do with it. We don't know yet, though.
We have a crime scene. We have a victim, but we don't know who did it. And so what is occurring is a series of search warrants that are blanketing the area, that are trying to just acquire all of the electronic evidence in the area for future use. And a team of agents is working on that right now. And what is critical at this point is to acquire not only the evidence at the crime scene, but the evidence from the day before, so you can conduct a comparison. Who was there on the day of the crime, who was not there the day before, and then when the investigators are chasing video, you're adding locations as you're chasing that vehicle down the road, as far as you can get it. You're adding geofence locations, you're adding locations to starting to compare electronic evidence, search warrant data. As you're layering that data, eventually you should get a very, very small number of devices. Essentially, you should get one. Because here's the thing, Brian, is it's not just phones anymore. It is cars, it is watches, it is vacuums, it is tablets. So many things we have are connected to the cellular network and connect on a regular basis. And that location information is critical to an investigation like this. So this is paramount to get that information rapidly.
Maureen, what do you make of these ransom notes? I know of at least two. One went to TMZ, and TMZ is saying that there was specific information about what Nancy was wearing and specific information about the inside of the house. Granted, we don't know if any of that's true. And then there's another note.
But if it is true, that's a great ransom note. That's what you want.
And there's another one that apparently or allegedly went to a local TV station here. My gut is like, don't you think these are just people like messing around trying to make some extra money? Apparently there's a Bitcoin routing number on one. Or do you think these could actually be legit, Maureen?
Well, if they describe exactly what she was wearing and it's definitive enough to dial into that, then yeah, that's a very important letter. And if it is an actual piece of paper, it could, even if they wore gloves, there could be trace DNA on it. And the fact that it was in an envelope and potentially mailed, I don't know, was it mailed? Was it dropped off? Was it, you would imagine it would
I think it was an email.
At
least to the TMZ,
okay.
yeah.
Well, yeah, then you can, and they can bounce these IP addresses all over the world, but the technology is, and this is something that probably Jeff can speak to better than I can at this point, but those IP addresses, we can dial into them so much faster and so much better with the help of AI. It's ridiculous. And with the tool.
So here's the thing, though. If you're a Bitcoin person, what you would do, you would get it in Bitcoin, and then you would probably try to transfer it to a privacy coin, something like Monero or something along those lines, because it's untrackable from there. That's the point. So that's probably what they would do, unless they're just not that smart and they're expecting on getting caught.
Tools that are available even to my team of PIs, and with really expensive, and I mean really expensive software, you can dial into this stuff much quicker than we ever could in the past. But Jeff, what are your thoughts on really honing in on an IP address now as opposed to maybe 5 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, we can flip an IP address. I mean, in minutes now with our ability to go backwards, especially our connections to the ISPs, and really the exigent capabilities we have now. And there's one thing I want to add, Brian. I'll tell you, these cases are unique. These high-profile cases, they bring two things to the table, two things that the investigators are going through right now. And I'll tell you this, it's management is getting involved, interfering with decision making, and they are slowing down the process. I promise you that.
100%.
And 100%. Because when a case like this, it becomes management heavy. Normal cases move like a speedboat. This case will move like an aircraft carrier. That is one point I want to make. The other point is, and Maureen knows that, I can tell from the smile. She knows exactly what I'm talking about. And the other point I want to make is, I want to say it gently. Maybe I'll come back to it.
No,
I'll think about
it. Throw it out there.
You can say
Maureen, she goes, go for it. Go for the gold. Throw it out there. We'll be able to handle it. We can handle it too.
you can just put it out there. You're retired now. You can just say it.
Well, let me think about how I want to be gentle.
It's interesting you said. It's interesting you said. I would have thought you said it moves like an aircraft carrier instead of a speedboat. I would think when it's a Savannah Guthrie, the opposite would be happening. They'd say,
No,
"Let's move this as fast as we
because everyone.
can."
No, because whenever microphones and cameras are involved, these people just are breathing down your neck because they want to look the best they can look.
Yeah.
It's at a time like this, in a case like this, where you need a honey badger on your squad that has no problem telling anyone to F the F off if need be.
Yeah.
I think we got some honey badgers in the chat here too, right? Nothing like a honey badger.
Because these people get in your way. They breathe down your neck. They micromanage. And then at the end, after you fight tooth and nail to get the job done, guess who takes all the credit?
Right. Right.
Yeah, they feel like they have the most to lose, and all the line detective wants to do is solve the crime. But man, it becomes very cumbersome. It's almost like a second job, is managing the managers, because boy, that it becomes very cumbersome, because you no longer kind of own the investigation. You have to run all of your decisions through a multitude of supervisors.
Do you think, Maureen, that they know a lot more than they're letting on? Because I was sitting in this press conference, and the sheriff is he was very open.
Very good question by Brian. Chat, do you think they know more than they're letting on? I would very likely think so. And I would think so because they're trying to protect Nancy Guthrie and protect what potentially could be a return of her safely, even if the odds for that are getting lower. But they can't blow that. So I think they do probably know more. Let's see what they say.
open yesterday. Today he was a little bit more tight-lipped, but he makes it sound like they still need the public's help, and this is just a big mystery.
Well, they do need the public's help. I mean, any tip, we all know that any tip can blow a case wide open. And there's someone sitting in their house right now following this case that knows most everything about this case, but they're keeping their mouth shut because it's a family member. But their heartstrings are being pulled left and right. But to Jeff's point, the point I think Jeff was trying to make was, in normal cases, these detectives, these cops, these FBI agents are out there doing this every single solitary day. There's a dope case where someone lost 2 kilos and they have to come up with the money to pay off the dope dealer. And so they're going to go and kidnap someone. That's why all these kidnappings happen in Mexico with rich people. It's because they need fast money to pay off a drug debt. It's just that simple. And so there's a lot of this that goes on, but in a case like this, when you have, and your boss is always like, okay, great. Really? That's what you're going to do? Yeah. We got a Title III going up here. We've got the guys over here. We have the IP address isolated here. We've got surveillance on this loc. And they're just like, oh, okay. That's great. But when it's a big case, they got to get their nose in it. It's human nature, I guess.
Yeah. And I recall, sorry, Brian, I don't mean to cut you off. I just want to make this point is I recall the second thing I wanted to say was, as soon as the case goes public, as soon as, whether it's the FBI or the sheriff's office, make an announcement, they put up a phone number or an email address, every lunatic who thinks it's funny to call in, will call in and provide a tip. And those tips have to be run down regardless. But 99.9% of the time, those are all red herrings. They're absolutely worthless. And from a I call it an IO, an investigator's perspective, from a detective owning perspective, it's really one of the worst things you can do is make the case public.
Like a huge ransom, right, Jeff?
That's right. Just
And that one guy in chat says this could have just been a burglary gone wrong, and that's very true. Because why would they go this far? It might have just been a burglary where they fucked up. They fucked up and they didn't want it to go this far, but they did. So rather than leave a body behind, they took it with them. That's certainly a possibility.
Once it goes public and it says, hey, we need your help. Oh man, it just changes the landscape of the investigation, because now the suspect who maybe thought they got away with it is going to totally change up. So hopefully, if the sheriff, I'm hoping, if maybe they have a suspect, under surveillance, maybe they're just waiting to build up the case for maybe building probable cause. Who knows?
Both of those are true.
That's right.
Surveilling him while they're trying to build the case.
While they're building it up,
and
right?
They're trying not to get burned, and so they're bringing in surveillance teams from other locations. Where
do you think she's still alive? May I ask both of you this? I mean, it's a sad question, but I mean, do you think she's still alive?
So, chat, what do you think? Do you think she's still alive? 1, she's still alive. 2, she is not still alive.
I saw that blood today, because I didn't know if it was 1 drop or a half a cup or whatever. That let the air out of my tires, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to speculate without knowing facts. I mean, because there's always so much more in these investigations that are held tight, especially in the cases that I know Maureen and myself at work. It's hard to say.
I hope
not likely. I hope she is.
Of course.
And again, the strange part is they didn't take anything of value, at least that we know of. So in which case, what were they even trying to do? Maybe the ransom is their end goal here, and they think, and again, how often do ransoms like this work where they actually get away with it? I mean, does it ever happen? Let me know if you've seen it happen. I haven't seen it happen. Or maybe if it does happen, they don't want to publicize it because they don't want to contribute to more of it happening. But what do you think?
Hope and pray she's okay.
Do you think it's random, or do you think this is going to end up being someone that she knew?
I think it's going to end up being someone that she intersected with at some point in time. Like, let's say, we talked a little bit about workers around the house, or people that work in the home but live in a home with another group of individuals that they share information about their day and all that other kind of stuff. Or it could be someone like a grocery delivery person, because she probably gets her groceries delivered. She can't walk 50 yards, so she's probably not carrying them in the house. And when you think about the difference in the level of interaction that you have with all these workers and all these other people versus the guy that delivers or the person that delivers your groceries, they oftentimes, you can let them in the house, and they come in the house and set them on your counter.
Yeah.
And then they're going to see there's no man there. She has that cute little dog, and the back slider's open, and you've got the lay of the land, a couple of times. Oh, can I use your restroom on the third time you're in there? Something along those lines.
Yeah.
But that
and I'll
remains
tell
to
you,
be seen.
yeah, this old lady's a real victim. And, if you look at all sorts of murders across the country, I don't know what the statistics are, but I would say generally in my experience, people who get murdered, for the most part, are living a lifestyle where that's more a possibility than not. This lady is not in that category.
No.
I wouldn't be surprised if this wasn't a burglary that went wrong and got out of hand. We do see that a lot here in Los Angeles, burglaries that are interrupted, and something goes wrong and it gets out of hand, and it turns into a homicide.
Do you think that it's somehow connected to Savannah Guthrie? Like, do you think the perpetrator knew that was her daughter, or do you think this is just going to be random? And
If the perpetrator knew that, it's because she was very kind and developed a relationship with whoever this person was and let them know. I don't think there's any way that anyone else would know that's who her daughter was, unless in fact someone that works in the house, around the house, with the family, some tangentially or otherwise, told them.
Right.
what do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, it could also be mistaken identity. We've seen suspects go to the wrong house.
We've seen
quite
police
literally
officers go to the wrong house.
Yeah.
Maureen's talking about, of course, the Michael McKee case, the Tepe double murder case, where that one cop went to the wrong house while he was singing songs by Kiss. So she remembered that vividly. But again, why her? Is it specifically because her daughter is Savannah Guthrie and they think there's money to be had there? If so, you want to do something like this, you wouldn't think, oh yes, let's go to Savannah Guthrie's mother, because we know she's living alone. Not beyond the realm of possibility, but I wouldn't think that would be my first choice to ransom.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I just testified in a murder case where the suspect literally Googled the wrong house and went and killed somebody because of that. So because this lady is so old and so innocent, it is so unusual that it is critical to really capture that electronic net over her house and then chase that vehicle, which I'm sure the investigators are doing, chase that vehicle and continue to cast that electronic net over the path of that vehicle, and try and figure out what device is common among those locations.
Brian, can I ask Jeff a
Sure,
question?
of course.
Okay, so so Jeff, if the offender has a burner phone with a SIM card that he bought in locations where it's not always traceable or whatever, how do you go about that? Obviously you cast the same net, but
Yeah,
what are the follow-on actions?
Yeah, that SIM card's still going to be connected to the network. It's looking for service, and it's still going to register. He may not have.
So even if you have a burner phone, it still has a SIM card that will register somewhere. So I guess they can track their location from that, even if it's a burner phone.
Service, even if the SIM card is ineligible for service, it's still going to request it. So it's still going to hit the net. It's still going to hit the tower. And so what's connecting to the tower is not the phone number. It's rather it's a long number called an IMSI, but it's an identifier, and it's an identifier for that device. And so regardless if it's powered on, it is broadcasting a signal, and it's not limited to a phone. You know, there's a vehicle, there's tablets, there's all sorts of stuff that can be connected.
What if the person with Mexico only 60 miles away? What if the person took her into Mexico? Does that impact the FBI's ability to track it?
No. We have outstanding relationships with Mexico. We have outstanding technical assets in Mexico. We have great cooperation, both technical and tactical in Mexico. We capture fugitives in Mexico with their assistance all the time.
Brian, do you think it would be interesting for the listeners to have Jeff talk about his background just a little bit, because his level of expertise is just off the charts?
Yeah, tell us real quick, Jeff. Then I'm going to jump just because I want to get back out. I see some more action around the house.
Sure. So I joined the FBI in 2003 after a few years in the Secret Service. After 9/11, I was in Washington, D.C. for that. Came out to L.A., worked drugs and fugitives, where I chased murder suspects for the better part of 10 years at the end of my career. I capitalized on tracking cell phones and became one of 15 designated national assets for the FBI based on my ability to find murder suspects and by utilizing cell phone tracking abilities. So the FBI left me in Los Angeles, but they designated me as a national asset so that I was deployable to anywhere in the world when significant events happened. So that's what I did for my last 6 years in the FBI. Was I would go to all the mass shootings. I would go to dozens and dozens of murders. I would say in my career, I have arrested probably over 500 homicide suspects and helped arrest probably over 1,000.
Well, thank you, Maureen, for connecting us with Jeff. This was great.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's like literally a sheriff's helicopter. I don't even know if can you guys see it?
Why don't you
So this guy has Maureen's endorsement. There's no higher endorsement around than Maureen's endorsement.
show us the
It's
helicopter?
right-
yeah.
And we'll tell
Do
you
you see
what's
it right there?
happening.
We're literally like right above the house. So anyway, I'm going to jump off. I appreciate you guys. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Maureen.
All right, man.
All right.
Thanks.
Really appreciate them for talking with me and being able to get their expertise, since they are retired FBI and have a ton of information and just experience working these kinds of cases. So I'm going to stay out here. Hopefully we'll get some new information soon. We may get another press briefing from the sheriff, although again, he said unless something develops, there's not going to be one until Thursday. But I'm going to keep pounding the pavement, try to get any information that I can, keep talking to neighbors. And I really appreciate you guys for watching. I'll keep you posted.
All right. So now what we're going to do here is we're going to check out what Savannah actually had to say.
On behalf of our family, we want to thank all of you for the prayers for our beloved mom, Nancy. We feel them, and we continue to believe that she feels them too. Our mom is a kind, faithful, loyal, fiercely loving woman of goodness and light. She's funny, spunky, and clever. She has grandchildren that adore her and crowd around her and cover her with kisses. She loves fun and adventure. She is a devoted friend. She is full of kindness and knowledge.
One thing I would say to her is include her name, Nancy Guthrie. Because if you remember Silence of the Lambs, what do they say? They say the senator was being very smart by continuing to mention her daughter's name to humanize her more. So that's one thing I hope she does.
Talk to her and you'll see.
The light is missing from our lives. Nancy is our mother. We are her children. She is our beacon. She holds fast to joy in all of life's circumstances. She chooses joy day after day. Despite having already passed through great trials of pain and grief, we are always going to be merely human, just normal human people who need our mom. Mama, if you're listening, we need you to come home. We miss you.
Our mom is our heart and our home. She's 84 years old. Her health, her heart is fragile. She lives in constant pain. She is without any medicine. She needs it to survive. She needs it not to suffer. We too have heard the reports about a ransom letter in the media. As a family, we are doing everything that we can. We are ready to talk. However, we live in a world where voices and images are easily manipulated. We need to know, without a doubt, that she is alive and that you have her. We want to hear from you, and we are ready to listen. Please reach out to us. Mommy, if you are hearing this, you are a strong woman. You are God's precious daughter, Nancy. We believe and know that even in this valley, He is with you. Everyone is looking for you, Mommy, everywhere. We will not rest. Your children will not rest until we are together again. We speak to you every moment, and we pray without ceasing, and we rejoice in advance for the day that we hold you in our arms again. We love you, Mom.
Love you, Mom.
We love you, Mom. Stay strong.
We love you, Mom. We love you.
All right. So that's that. I mean, I wish they would have said their name, but maybe saying mom could be just as impactful because like everyone was born from a mother. So maybe that could have the same impact, continuing to call her mom. I'm not sure. So now we're going to go to the new Brian Netton video.
On my video, people what's going on. Hey guys, thanks so much for checking out my show. Really appreciate it. Please click to subscribe. I'm still in Tucson covering just the awful story, the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie outside her house. This is her house right here, where I've been spending a lot of time. There's a lot of questions about, is there a suspect or is there not a suspect? Is there a person of interest or is there not a person of interest? Do police know more than they are letting on? I'm going to dive into all of that in this episode. I'm going to tell you everything that I've learned today I'm also going to talk to retired FBI agent Maureen O'Connell, who has some information on what's going on and get her take on everything, and also show you everything that I've seen today. There's been more searches happening in the area for Nancy. I actually happened to just stumble on one of the searches, so I'm going to take you there in a minute. I was also over at Savannah Guthrie's sister's house, Nany Guthrie's house. I'll show you what it's looking like outside her house right now, where there's also a ton of media, and then give you a lay of the land in the neighborhood. A lot of you guys have messaged me like asking more questions about cameras and what the neighborhood is actually like here. So I'm going to take you on a sort of a tour of the neighborhood area, give you the latest. Also on the ransom threats, I've got some new information on the ransom notes, the alleged ransom notes. So I'll give you the latest on that. And again, also going to talk to Maureen. So I've got a packed episode, latest on the Nancy Guthrie disappearance, coming up in this episode of Brian Ensign Investigates. All right, hey guys. So again, I'm outside Nancy Guthrie's house, and it's each day it just seems to get more mysterious, this whole thing, trying to sort.
Shorty, you gave me a chuckle with that one, Shorty. Doxing the hell out of people.
Through what's going on, what police may know, and sort of the latest. There's been a lot of questions about whether or not there is a known suspect. And I know there's been other reporting out there about a suspect. I don't have any, and you guys know I'm always totally transparent with you about what I know and what I don't know, and I never report anything that I'm not able to confirm myself. So I'm just like, I'm an open book with you guys. I don't have any information or any reporting or any information from my own sources about there being a suspect right now. It doesn't mean that there's not one behind the scenes, but I have no reporting on that. So what I do know is that the sheriff put out a statement today, and this is what the sheriff's office said. It says, "At this point, investigators have not identified a suspect or person of interest in this case. Detectives continue to speak with anyone who may have had contact with Mrs. Guthrie. Detectives are working closely with the Guthrie family. While we appreciate the public's concern, the sharing of unverified accusations or false information is irresponsible and does not assist the investigation. No suspect or person of interest has been identified at this time." So that is the latest from the Pima County Sheriff's Department. They're going to have another press conference tomorrow, or maybe we'll get some more information. I will say, in the past, I have covered other cases where police will not be.
So chat, tell me what the deal here is. Ashley Banfield said there is a suspect. Other people in the chat told me no, that's been proven to not be true. So which one is it? We'll have to go there next.
So forthcoming with the media and the public initially, even if they have information behind the scenes. But needless to say, that statement was very, very clear that they're saying that they do not have a person of interest or a suspect at this time. So in terms of the latest on what's been happening out here, it's been relatively quiet here outside Nancy's house. There is private security now that's sort of keeping an eye on the house out here. And her daughter, Nany, lives about 10 minutes from here, where there's also a big media presence. I want to show you what it's like there.
So I think the only reason why he was allowed to fly a drone over the house is no longer a crime scene. That's what they were saying. So that would make sense.
So this is Nany Guthrie's house, where she lives with her husband, and this is about 10 minutes away from Nancy's house. So it's pretty close. It's actually a very similar neighborhood in terms of just the houses are kind of spaced out. They're a little bit closer together here, but it's desert out here. It's out on the fringe of Tucson, and you can see there's a lot of media out here outside Nany's house, who are all just waiting to see if she comes back. What's happening. The FBI was out here yesterday. I have that confirmed. And they were talking to Nany and her husband. So the media is just out here waiting to see if anything develops here outside the house. But yeah, it's a single story kind of ranch style. You can see like everything else around here. There's a ton of cactus out in the yard. And we don't believe anyone is home right now. So it's pretty quiet. out here now. And again, this is just media out here. The neighbors have been coming out and asking sort of for updates and what's going on.
Oh my God, it's like a media circus out there. It's probably a TMZ representative, Ashley Banfield representative. Who else? Maureen might have been out there.
Kind of give you an idea of what the neighborhood is like
All the other major news networks.
here. Again, the houses are spread out. Kind of a lot of land and space in between the houses. After I left, there was also some action there, which one of my colleagues got some video of. There, Savannah's sister Annie, and who we believe is her brother, came home to the house and then just went inside. So obviously, just a terrible situation for the entire family. There have been some reports that Savannah is staying with her sister there. We don't know that for sure, but we do know that Savannah is still in the area here, in the Tucson area. That's according to the sheriff. What's also interesting is with these ransom notes. So there were 2 ransom notes. One went to TMZ, and the other one went to a local TV station here in Tucson. What's interesting is that all happened yesterday, that we found out about it yesterday, but the sheriff is now saying that the night before, so not yesterday, which would have been, I'm getting my days mixed up, yesterday would have been Tuesday, Monday night, the sheriff says that they found out about the one ransom note, I believe the one sent to the local TV station here in Tucson, and the sheriff actually showed the note and told Savannah Guthrie about the note and showed Savannah the note. That is what the sheriff is saying. What I find interesting about that is that, and the sheriff also made clear that they still don't know the legitimacy of the notes. But what I think is interesting is that he obviously thought it was important enough that he showed Savannah Guthrie the note. But we still don't know if the note is legit. We don't know if either note is legit, but we know that it described what Nancy Guthrie was wearing and also some details from inside the house. Whether those details are true and legit, we don't know. That's something I'm going to ask Maureen O'Connell about in a minute. I'm also going to ask her about her thoughts about whether or not there could be a suspect that police are just not being forthcoming about. So that's coming up in a few minutes, but I wanted to give you that update on the ransom notes. Also, when I was driving here to Nancy's house from Savannah's sister's house, I noticed there's still a lot of searching going on in this area. We saw the helicopter up last night here for an hour, circling very, very low around Nancy's home. And then I saw them searching in a wooded area a little while ago. So I was just driving back over to Nancy's house, and you can see there's all of these sheriff's deputies from the Pima County Sheriff's Office that were all just out searching in this area. And they all just packed up to leave. And I'm really...
So what are they searching for? Possessions, phones, a body? What do you think?
Right behind where Nancy's house is. I'm going to walk across the street here and show you. And I was trying to explain to you guys yesterday, but there's all this like just empty area in between the houses out here in her neighborhood. So this is like a big just open area. Her house is back on the other side over there. But they were all just stopped here and searching. And this kind of goes back to us seeing the helicopter yesterday. There was a helicopter up over her house where they were searching. So I don't know if they're getting tips or what, but there's definitely still a search going on in her neighborhood. All right, so clearly there's still searches going on. I showed you this drone video yesterday that shows kind of what the neighborhood is like from the sky and just how...
And again, the only reason why he was able to fly this drone is because the house is no longer a crime scene. If it was, he wouldn't be able to do this.
Spread apart the homes are, but I also wanted to give you an on-the-ground look at the area right around Nancy's house. All right, so I just want to show you guys a little bit of the lay of the land with the neighborhood. This is Nancy's house here, and they now have security outside, but you can see all the media here in front of the house. And a lot of people have been asking me, like, what's it like around the neighborhood? What's it like next to the house? This is my team, by the way. This is Nick and Mo. They're working like crazy out here. Appreciate them. But so anyway, that's Nancy's house. That's her driveway. And then you can see, like, everyone's like, oh, it's a neighborhood. But I mean, look, right next to her house, there's just a lot of just wooded area. And I say wooded, I mean, it's cactuses, it's desert. Then you can see the next house next door is back behind the brush here. But across the street, there's just more brush. And when people are like, oh, you know, there's got to be a ton of cameras around. There's got to be traffic cameras right there. I mean, now you get an idea of why we're not seeing much video. Granted, there might be some traffic cameras down along the main drag that I saw, but there's no.
And again, that's a lot of ground. That's a lot of land that she was living on as an 84-year-old woman living by herself, whose mobility is not the best. I mean, if people caught wind of that, they would think, oh, this might be a sitting duck. That's how a predator would think of it.
Cameras right in this area. And even if houses have cameras like this one, you see how far set back they are from the road. And if you look at my video from last night, it's pitch black out here. I mean, there's no street lights or anything like that out here. Hey, how you doing? It's right back there. There are no cops there. Yeah.
Do you have any?
Do you live around here?
I do.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm on a live stream. I don't know if you mind me just talking to you for a minute. Yeah. What's your name?
I don't want to talk.
Okay. Okay.
No, I just need to find the police. They're not here.
No. Did you know something?
Well,
Brian's got this woman on camera that like.
What kind of pictures?
Well, we live in this neighborhood, but closer to First Avenue.
Okay.
We get a ton of people in here casing these houses.
People casing houses?
Oh yeah, I have pictures.
Really?
I saw the tip line yesterday.
Can you show me? Do you mind?
So she just said that she's got pictures of people casing the houses around. What do you want to know? What do you want to bet? That's probably a good guess for the suspect.
Yeah, but not until I'll come back.
Okay, I'm right outside the front. You definitely find the police though. They're not outside the house, but I would go to the sheriff's office.
Well, no, that's a really big drive. But I'm going to go over to the other house because I know where that is.
Go over there. And there were also police just searching around the corner.
Corner where?
Gosh, I got my.
It
gets tricky around here. Yeah, it does.
And see, that's why it's so incredibly hard to believe this is random.
Yeah.
I mean, I live in this neighborhood and I couldn't find it. My husband grew up just a little bit over there, and so he walks here all the time.
Well, that's what I was just saying on my video. I'm still recording, by the way. I hope you don't mind. But yeah. But I was just saying on my video, people don't realize how, like, they think, oh, why isn't there more video? But there's no cameras around here. Or if they're on the houses, they're set back.
They're around.
Are they?
Yeah, they're around. People have them, but that's one thing over there that my husband, because our neighborhood is technically part of this one.
Okay.
This is just the older part. And people have cameras over there. I know one person who has cameras.
What the pictures you have, is it what kind of people walk? Like what?
There are people who come and ask for, do you want to buy solar panels?
Oh, yeah, that kind of stuff.
Windows washed, but they never have equipment.
Yeah.
And then there's a real weird situation that happened a while back. So I'm going to go.
Okay, go talk to police. Thank you.
A really weird situation. I wonder what that was. And did you notice what she was saying? People wanting to do things like odd jobs, but then not having the proper equipment. There's been people out there, the Elizabeth Smart case, for example. Her parents, that's who they hired. They hired a person that was just doing odd jobs. And what they didn't realize was he was actually casing out their daughter to abduct her. So, you know, be careful. Be careful with who you hire to do some of these odd jobs.
That's interesting. Yeah, I heard that woman there. People have been pretty friendly here for the most part. But so as you turn the corner here, this goes up back behind. This goes back up behind Nancy's house. So this is the house next to hers here. And you heard her just say that people have cameras, but I have not seen a ton of cameras. My producer yesterday spotted a couple. The helicopter that we saw up in the air yesterday was up kind of above this area here, circling for a while. But I just wanted to walk a little farther back just to kind of show you the area back behind where Nancy lives. The houses are really nice. So this back here would be back behind the house, back in that area right there. So hopefully this gives you guys a little more of the lay of the land. I showed you the drone video yesterday, but it would be easy at night to get in and out of here without like a camera, I think, being able to spot your tag or something like that.
So Brian's doing a good job here of showing us the whole layout. And just look at the landscape. The landscape is so different than where I am on the East Coast. No cactus here.
There are only a couple ways in and out of the neighborhood, and it's kind of twisty and windy in here. I'm joined now by Maureen O'Connell, a retired FBI agent and host of the
Maureen's the GOAT
podcast, Best Case, Worst Case. Thank you again for joining me, Maureen. I really appreciate it. And I always appreciate all of your expertise and analysis of what's going on. The first thing I want to ask you is there's been reports out there about there being a suspect or person of interest. And the sheriff's office put out a pretty strongly worded statement today saying there is no suspect, there is no person of interest, and basically saying it was irresponsible. Those reports were irresponsible.
All right. So that's what the sheriff said. Now, is the sheriff just not showing his hand here because he doesn't want the suspect to think they're onto them? Could that be possible? Could he be playing poker here? I don't know. What do you think, chat?
Do you think that there might be someone behind the scenes and they just don't want to say it?
Yes, I think it's a very good strategic move to keep all this stuff close to the vest. Because you don't want to scare them. You don't want their guard up. You don't want them building armor up around themselves. And, you've got to be pretty sure. So it's always a better course of action to just be conservative with the information that you give out. I think that the sheriff means well, but there's been a lot of information that's slightly contradictory, and it makes a lot of people feel like they're on a roller coaster. So we don't really want that. But more importantly, or most importantly, we want what's best for the investigation. And I think what's best for the investigation is to just, you can speculate if you want, but let's keep it all above board.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing, and this just comes to mind because it's current for me. I've been going through, they've released all the Brian Kohberger police reports from early on, like the first month after the murders. And one big part of those reports is like all these different suspects that they had and people that they really thought may have done it. And like people they were doing lie detectors on and doing DNA tests. And so it just makes me think like, even if they think they know who it is today, that could change tomorrow, right?
Well, it goes back to what Jeff and I were saying yesterday, which is all these leads have to be, or tips have to be run to ground, whether or not you believe the person is good for it or not good for it. You can't leave that stone unturned, because you have to be able to say to the court that we exhausted all of our other resources and this is the person that we believe firmly, and these are the reasons why.
Very well said by Maureen. You have to examine all these leads as if they're true. Because think about it. If you are the suspects in this case, and let's say she's alive, what is your end goal here? Do you possibly think you're going to get some sort of ransom and you're going to successfully do this and then return her safely? I mean, is it possible they think that? It kind of reminds me of the movie Dog Day Afternoon. Like, no, that didn't work in that movie. So I think the best the suspects could even hope for now is they just leave her and then run. But again, they can't even do that because then she's probably going to tell them about who it is that did it. So these guys, I don't know. I don't know what their thinking was.
Because the defense is inevitably going to come up with, hey, you didn't look at Joe Schmo and he was right there and people knew it and there's a photo of him right there. Yes, we did look at Joe Schmo and here's what we came up with. These are the reports. We actually, it's very important to do that kind of stuff.
Speaking of the ransom letters, we talked about this yesterday. There was one that was sent to TMZ, and there was one that was sent to a local TV station here in Tucson. And the sheriff has now said that that was yesterday that we learned about these. So that would have been on Tuesday. The sheriff has now said on Monday night. So we didn't even know that they knew about these ransom letters, but they knew about at least one of them Monday night. And the sheriff says that he showed Savannah Guthrie, Nancy's daughter, that letter on Monday night.
So this is a good question in the chat here by Bella. I wonder if the home security was shut down by the person who got into her home. We do know he took the ring cam, or while she was away Saturday night. If someone was waiting for her when she was dropped off Saturday Eve, scary. I would agree. Very scary. And again, where's her phone? The ring cams are connected to the phone. Are they connected to anything else though? I don't have a ring cam. So those of you in the chat who have a ring cam, what's it connected to? Is it connected to your phone? Is it connected to your laptop? Is it connected to both? What is it? And who has access to the footage? Does the ring company have access to all the footage as well on top of the phone and laptop? Does a cloud service? I don't know. I'm asking you all.
To see, I guess, what she thought of it. Hasn't legitimized the letter, but said that he did go and show Savannah. Why do you think he would have done that?
Well, he wanted her to see the description of her mom and what she was wearing. And also
So there's a correction. It wasn't a ring cam. Apparently it was Nest. Okay.
Sometimes you want to look at the verbiage that's being used and the phrasing, and it's the way someone speaks is the way they write. He was probably gleaning, he and his investigators were probably gleaning as much as they could. Like, does this sound familiar? Is this in fact what she was wearing? Do you recognize any of this, any of these phrases? Maybe there were some colloquialisms in there, who knows? So he wanted to get a firsthand, it's always important to get a firsthand physical look at this to see if anything comes, top of mind to her about who may have written it or authored it.
Do you think it means, though, that it may be legit?
It's just part of the process of going through things to check them off the list to see if it's legitimate. You have to find out if that description of what she was wearing was in fact correct. I mean, there are certain steps you just have to take, whether or not you want to, whether or not you think they're right. I mean, they're just processes in place that make sense, that are tried and true in law enforcement.
Does the FBI you always hear, like in the movies, that they always say don't pay the ransom. Is that true?
No.
Is that
no? No. I mean, there are times they pay the ransom, but there are times it's
a good question by Brian. I thought he would be right. They don't pay the ransom. But Maureen's saying, actually, no, there are times you pay the ransom. But let's see what she says.
Reverse engineer it. You always want a hostage negotiator there. You always want the behavior or the profilers there, because the profilers will know how to either poke the bear or push the offender in a different direction. Like if the offender is getting agitated, they can talk them down. So can a really good negotiator. But they'll say, hey, if you're trying to get this offender to come out, like there are instances where the profilers will say, call him stupid, make fun of him, because he's going to try to prove to you that he's not stupid, that he is strong, that he is, if you emasculate this person, he's going to come out and try to prove that he's masculine, or things along those lines. They're very, very skilled at that. So pay the ransom, I don't know. I would, we don't do it often, but we have done it. And I'm sure there are some.
That's fascinating to me. But as someone in the chat just said, what you'd want to do is you want to first make sure you need to give us proof of life. Before there's even a thought of paying a ransom, you better show me she's alive. Now, that's what you need to do first, right? And that's either way, you want that anyway, right? You want to find out, are we trying to solve a murder, or are we still trying to rescue? Because there's a big difference.
successful cases, and I'm sure there are unsuccessful cases. I would say the victimology and getting to know the offender would probably be considered more important.
Something else new, there's reporting, this is from TMZ, that cops are probing a trespassing case and think a possibility of a link from that to the Nancy Guthrie situation. A suspicious man was seen lurking in someone's yard near Nancy Guthrie's Arizona home. This was several weeks ago, and police are now investigating the case to see if it's tied. There's an elderly man who spotted the trespasser at his Tucson home. It's about 10 minutes away from Nancy's house. And it's interesting, Maureen, I was out talking to a neighbor this morning who said the same thing, that there have been people lurking around a couple of people they saw lurking around the last couple of weeks. Do you think that could pan out into anything?
A couple of people lurking around, yes. My understanding was I only knew about that one person. And I would say that one person, if that were an isolated incident, would be a watered down lead. I mean, we would obviously follow it to its logical conclusion. But if it's just one person 10 blocks away who gets scared off when a motion detector goes on, that's a different animal than someone who is emboldened enough to break in, rip off cameras, drag someone from the house, all that other kind of stuff. Those are two different type of criminals. Now, definitely one could evolve into the latter, but it would take time. I think it would take time and a lot of criminal activity in between. Now that you're saying that it's a number of people, okay, now you have me interested. So now, that's all going to have to be looked into. But they'll have camera footage of that. And if these people saw that.
And that's very possible too. There could be multiple people working on this. Because again, unless they're just dumb, they're going to have some kind of plan, you would think, right? If they want to get away. But what's the likelihood people in this situation truly get away unscathed? They get away unscathed. They never get caught. I mean, it's extremely rare. Of all the things to want, I mean, the elderly get scammed all of the time. They get scammed all of the time in their emails and all sorts of things. Generally speaking, that's a much, quote unquote, safer way to go if you're going to do this kind of thing. But maybe they got greedy. I don't know. Or maybe it's deeper than that. Maybe there's other things going on that they haven't been able to tell us, so we just don't know.
It's my experience that the people have camera coverage of their property right around their curtilage, not so much to the road, as I mentioned earlier, but they should have screenshots of that they've shown their friends or neighbors or shared on the Nextdoor app if they do that there regularly, like we do every place else. And if that's the case, that'll be a quick wrap up or a new line of inquiry in the case.
Yeah, and you make a good point. I mean, someone lurking around maybe to steal something, which I think kind of happens in every neighborhood, is a lot different than, going in and abducting an 84-year-old woman who can't walk very well. Was thinking about that a lot today. Just like how difficult, it's not just a normal abduction. I mean, to take her was more difficult, right?
It's interesting when you have someone get punched in the face and you have an assault. That's one thing. When you have someone that breaks into a house to attack someone, wow, that's a whole nother level. When you have someone that breaks into the house, attacks someone, drags them out, they're bleeding, they disappear for days. We have no idea what's happening. These are extraordinary leaps in behavior. And when you said you thought about that guy in the backyard that was lurking, the point I was trying to make was that person was scared off when a light turned on. That's not the same type of personality that's going to be booting down doors, breaking in windows, ripping off cameras, beating up old ladies and dragging them off to God knows where. So, but if it's happened a lot over the last, if this person's been in a lot of people's backyard, it turns out to be the same person. Now you've piqued my interest. So we'll see. Yeah, I still think it's someone that has to have a better understanding of that house, the layout, when she's alone, if she's alone, the fact that she might have money, things like that. I don't know what the situation is with the family members, but the family members is that initial concentric circle that we talk about, in security. We usually start with concentric circles and start with the closest one. So they had to go through the family members in order to get to where we are right now.
Well, and we saw the FBI, speaking of the family members, we saw the FBI out at Savannah's sister's house, Annie's house, yesterday. And they were out there talking to Annie and her husband in the driveway. Is that unusual, or do they just always kind of start with the family in terms of who to talk to?
Yeah, we're always going to start with the family because it's the person that knows them that may have the most to lose or the most to gain, that are the ones that generally, cause these crimes to happen.
Yeah.
Like who's got something to lose? Is there money involved? Can someone get some money from this person?
And very likely it's someone they knew a lot of times. Just like they say with SA cases, it's usually someone you know. It's not the very complete stranger cases, much more rare. But that's one of the things where the serial killers, that they don't know them. Now, the serial killer has been stalking them a lot of times, but the other person doesn't know it. The other person doesn't know it. But that's one of the things that makes those situations much more terrifying. You don't know them. But a lot of times they do know them. They are related or connected in some way.
They may have, I had a case 2.5 years ago of a brother and a sister that went to the mom and demanded their inheritance now. And I've actually seen an uptick in that type of behavior. So they said, Mom, why we don't want to wait till you're dead. We want you to give us our money right now. And what's the big deal? We're going to have to pay taxes on it. We can get more for our money now. And they were just nonstop on their mom, trying to get her to give them her inheritance. And she ended up just doing almost the opposite.
Interesting. I mean, statistically, though, it doesn't really, there's not normally just random people kidnapping old ladies, right?
No.
I mean, that doesn't happen.
If you're going to kidnap someone.
Now, again, if you watch my interview with Mike King from Profiling Evil, in his book, Wolves in Sheep's Clothing, he talks about Danny Troyer. What did Danny Troyer do? He pretended to be a magazine salesman, and he targeted the elderly to kill them and SA them, by the way. And what he would do is, after he did it, he would dress them back up in their pajamas and put them in bed so it looked like they died in their sleep, because he would strangle them. So that does happen. And Mike King said, Danny Troyer, what's the first thing he would do if he got out of jail, out of prison? He would go kill an elderly lady. So check out that interview if you haven't seen it yet.
Really want someone that you have to actually physically carry around? No. I mean, you have to be, criminals, sophisticated criminals are strategic and they think things out. This sounds like a half-baked or an impulsive or very emotional situation that occurred.
Interesting. Today, there was more searching around the house, I saw. There was like 7 deputies in a field. And there's cactus around here. It's pretty kind of brutal walking through these fields. But, and then last night, after I talked to you, Maureen, there was a helicopter that was up for about an hour, very low, just right around Nancy's house. What do you think? Do you think they're getting like new information, or do you think they're just going back to double check?
Yeah, or a dog is hitting on something, or they were talking to someone who said they may have heard something. One of the next door neighbors' camera may have turned on at a certain time, or a motion light, and they didn't know why. And but I've been on many, way too many grid searches. So they were all on a line, right, walking in the same direction.
They were.
Yes, so they're grid searching, and that can be really brutal, especially in the desert. I've done a lot of that too. They're definitely looking for something, and when we would set up to do a grid search, we would be very targeted in where we were, why we were there, and which way we were headed. And sometimes it's just to check an area off the list. Another time it's because they found something before when they were there last time, and they thought it could be this or that, and it turned out to be something interesting. So now they're going back over it to see if there's anything else.
And sometimes it seems people are found close to home.
Yeah, well, and they're also found very close to the road. Like, for example, in LA, the Angeles National Forest is like what I would call a rather infamous body dump area. But what a lot of people do not realize is that the bodies are often very close to the road because bodies are very hard to carry. Some people put the body on a blanket and drag it, and you can get it a lot further doing it that way. And people learn that from hunting and stuff, from hunting deer. You can roll the deer or whatever onto a tarp and drag it and get it a lot further than you would if you were just, dragging someone by their ankles or something. I'm not saying that happened to Mrs. Guthrie at all. I'm not.
I know. It's just, she's such a sweet looking,
Ugh.
like grandma. Like every time I see the photo, I see why the whole world is invested in this case, because it's like you think about your own grandma.
I think about my mom. Well, I'm older than you, but just sweet, kind, lovely, and just for this to happen to her, I'm.
And again, we don't know how this is going to end yet, but I do think it's important to ask ourselves, what can we learn from this case? What can we learn to protect future people? And I would say one thing to learn is maybe 84-year-olds that don't get around too well, maybe shouldn't be living on their own. Maybe there should be someone there. I'm not saying that's across the board, black and white, but when you're not getting around too well, I don't know, and you're on such a big property like that, that's one thing to learn. As we learn more about the case, there will be more lessons to pull from it, but that might be one for now.
Sure, everyone can see this has really affected me. I care for a lady up the street who's the same age, like the same size, and it's just, if anything like this happened to her or any, being a law enforcement officer for decades means you're a victim advocate for decades. People think that we're salty and we're rough around the edges, etc., but it's because we've seen a lot. And when we see this, it really hits home. And this is hitting home for everyone. One thing, when you're getting ready to do a grid search, and we did a series of these for children, and on one instance we found the child.
Let's see here. Thank you for this, Jude. Oh, not Brenda. Thank you for this, Jude. Don't forget to like and subscribe, folks. Amen to that, Jude. Like and subscribe out there. I'm on live doing this kind of thing almost every night. Thank you again, Jude.
When you're doing a grid search and you're looking for potentially a human body, you don't know, you can't imagine the mindset of finding that. You really want to find this person because you want to give closure to their family because we care about the victims, but you don't want to find it because you will never, ever be able to unsee what you see in that instance.
Yeah. So that's what's going through their minds probably when they're doing these searches.
Right.
And knowing also that the attention of the world is on this.
Yes. Well, we don't really care about that. I mean, I guess you want to do a good job. You always want to do a good job, but like simple things, even having breakfast that morning, you're like, I don't even want to eat much. And then you're like, you could be out there walking for 8-9 hours straight. You need to bring a bunch of water and you got to eat something, because you don't know when you're going to be able to eat again. And then it just becomes more like putting gas in your car as opposed to enjoying a meal or something.
That video we got yesterday of the blood, some people were kind of giving me a hard time, like, oh my gosh, it's a crime scene. Like, how could you guys do that? The thing is, it wasn't a crime scene anymore. I mean, the sheriff,
Right.
the tape was down. There was no one there. And we were just going to knock on the door to see if any family was there. And that's when we saw the blood. But are you surprised that, and this is what some people have asked me today, like,
and this is what I was talking about before, right? That's why he was able to fly the drone in there too, because it was no longer an official crime scene. The crime scene would be where they find a body, if they find a body, if she's indeed gone, right? That would be then a crime scene. But the crime scene can also move depending on where she is right now. If she's alive, it can go from bing to boom to bing.
are you surprised that it wasn't still taped off in some way, that everybody just kind of packed up and left?
No, because this is what normally happens. Why are people surprised by this? first of all, I have no problem with the blood droplets that you showed. Secondly, this is what every family goes through, every victim of every crime. The police can only hold, I mean, law enforcement across this country is at an all-time low. Everybody's short, short of resources. But more importantly, this is how we treat everyone. We're not going to treat her any differently because she's Savannah Guthrie. We're going to respect her family, respect her mom, the investigation, just like we would anyone else. And that's what Jeff was alluding to a little bit yesterday. Law enforcement is out there doing this type of work every day of every year. And we do it with the same amount of integrity if we can. Now, there are instances when you're in a place where it's a hostile environment and you may have to go a little bit faster, because if you lose 3 guys, you guys are not going to be safe. We've all been in situations like that before, but we're still going to operate with integrity.
Do you think the FBI, because the way they described it yesterday at the press conference was they were just assisting with some cell phones, in back end investigation stuff. Do you think they're taking more control at this point?
No, we're not going to take control. We do this all the time. This is what the Bureau does. I mean, on TV, they're like, "Whoa, we're the FBI. We're here to take over." And cops will joke when I show up, and I'll say, I'd show up to a crime scene or something, and I'd shake their hands and say, "Hey, Maureen O'Connell with the FBI." And they're like, "Oh, sorry to hear that."
It's the FBI police rivalry. They definitely have a rivalry. They go over it a little bit in the show The Wire. But for those who don't know, Maureen, former FBI agent.
You take over, just joking around. It's just the banter that we do all the time. But we don't have jurisdiction in this case, so we're not taking this case over. That doesn't happen. The sheriff has asked us to help him. And when the sheriff asked us to help him, and they outlined, the ASAC outlined very well what they're doing, what the roles are. But there are times in an investigation where you're giving assistance to a local department or sheriff's department, and you say, "Hey guys, I know that you're dealing with all this stuff. Like, there's so many tips and leads come in. If you'd like, we can give you a couple analysts as well that they can get this thing rocking and rolling for you and sort of prioritize these tips and leads." And we have FBI.gov where you can submit a tip or lead, and a lot of people use that website all the time. So there could be tips and leads naturally coming in on that. Right? People will call all law enforcement entities to report stuff, believe it or not. Some people will be in another state and call 911 to report a tip and lead on this case, and then that municipal police department will forward that lead onto either the FBI or the police department or the sheriff. Now, we also most of us have software that helps us do all this sorting and staying on top of all these leads, because as you can imagine, when it's come in, sometimes leads get overlooked, and people are very judgmental when that happens. But if it's not that long since we've had all this great Wazoo software. Before that, it was all, pushing papers around and getting them organized. And you should have seen after 9/11, hundreds of thousands of leads everywhere. I never saw anything like the machinations of organizing the leads after 9/11. And it was almost all by paper with a brand new software system that we put in. And I mean, only on a couple of computers, only a couple of weeks before. And now we had to try to how to train everyone. No one had any time off, 16, 18-hour days, 7 days a week for months at a time. We got it done though. And it was one of our proudest moments.
Well, and what Jeff was saying yesterday was interesting, just how quickly in a case like this, they can turn around like an IP address in terms of the ransom. He basically said it was like almost instantaneous these days,
and that's new. That's not something that we were able to do just 5 or 6 years ago.
As always, I really appreciate Maureen for taking the time to talk with me. I appreciate all of you.
That's funny. Coffin Doffer is who it is. We've gone over her as well. I agree. She's no Maureen.
For watching my videos and supporting my channel. And I'm going to stay here. I don't have any plans to leave, so I'll keep everybody posted with any developments on the case. Of course, my heart goes out to the Guthrie family. I hope there's a positive outcome to all of this. There's a press conference tomorrow morning, Thursday morning, that I'll be at, so I'll keep you guys updated on what happens there, and I'll talk to you guys later.
All right, so guys, what do you want to watch next? Megyn Kelly or Ashley Banfield? Megyn Kelly, number 1. Ashley Banfield, number 2. Let me know. Ashley Banfield's the one that has the video about the suspects. Megyn Kelly, I don't even know what her video is about, but she definitely talks about it. So like 5, no Kelly. It's going to be close. Well, it looks like Ashley's going to win this one for now. Then Megyn will be next.
I'm Ashley Banfield, and this is Drop Dead Serious. I have some breaking information on the kidnapping of Nancy Guthrie, Savannah Guthrie's mother in Tucson, Arizona. I have spoken with an impeccable law enforcement source who has informed me, with his knowledge of the investigation, of some extraordinarily serious pieces of information about this crime scene. I can tell you that Mrs. Guthrie had cameras, plural, at this home, and that they were smashed. You may have heard Brian Enton from News Nation talking earlier and asking Sheriff Chris Nanos a question in the news conference. And again, today, I'm recording on February the 3rd. It's a Tuesday. The press conference that was early in the day, Brian asked the sheriff, the camera on the front of the house is missing. And the sheriff said, we are trying to get into the companies that, are proprietors of this kind of cloud information to get that, and said by today, he did not have that information, did not have whatever was recorded. But I can tell you they are Nest cameras. They are Nest cameras, plural, and that whoever did this may have smashed those.
So Nest cameras, we heard that before, right? Not Ring, but Nest.
Cameras, plural. So they're not there, presumably because law enforcement took those smashed cameras as evidence. I can also tell you I've got information about which door in the house was actually left open. There's been some erroneous reporting about some things. I now have the information about that. I can tell you about blood in the house. I can confirm. Brian Enton has some incredible reporting and pictures of blood outside the house. He's going to join me in a moment. We're going to talk about that. I can also tell you whose car has been towed into evidence. And I can tell you that there is a family member who is being heavily looked at right now.
So again, she's saying there's a family member being heavily looked at right now. So what do you think about this, chat? Should Ashley not report this to not interfere with the case, especially since we're learning the sheriff is denying it, if so? So do you agree with what Ashley's doing here? Or do you think, no, she should have not said this and she's interfering with the case in a way?
As a potential suspect. I'm going to bring that all to you in a moment. There's more information about Nancy's pacemaker. You probably have heard up until now that Nancy Guthrie had a pacemaker and it disconnected from her Apple devices, her Apple Watch, her Apple phone, which were left in the home at about 2:00 in the morning. And that is a significant time. And I will tell you why, that it is extraordinarily instructive to this investigation in terms of narrowing to a window. I'll explain why in a moment. Don't think that the pacemaker stopped working because she died. That's not it. The separation of Bluetooth between the things that the pacemaker was linked to, the Apple Watch and the phone. When they get out of range, you take your AirPods, you walk out, you leave an air tag behind, you get a notice, you're disconnected. That's more what this is about, but the timing of it is specific to narrow down the investigative window. So I'm going to get into all the details of all of these little pieces of information that I told you, because I've just touched the tip of the iceberg, but I also want to get you up to speed on all the information that came out today from a few different sources. Number one, from the sheriff himself, who held a news conference and answered questions. And then also from Brian Enton, because he got some great information. And as I mentioned, he's going to be up in just a moment with me. We're going to talk about.
And again, Ashley and Brian, they were co-workers, colleagues at News Nation.
About all his findings. So John Edwards is the assistant special agent in charge of the FBI in Tucson. He joined Sheriff Chris Nanos for the news conference today. Again, it's February 3rd, Tuesday. They held this update, but they didn't give a lot of information. They just.
So what I think about this, though, is in a case where she might still be alive, I think that calls for a little more caution in what you share and what you don't share. That's what I would say. Yes, we live in a free country. Yes, there's a First Amendment. But that being said, just morally, and if you want to make sure she has the highest likelihood of being returned home alive, that requires a little bit of caution, if you ask me. So maybe you don't share things that could interfere. That's my thought.
Said basically this is to answer your questions in the press. And I can tell you that we found out this is not a gated community. Okay. That was one report that came out. It's not a gated community. It's also very dark and there are no streetlights. So very hard to see anything that might have been driving up and down those roads. The properties are huge, right? They're anywhere between 1 and 4 acres each. So more rural, don't think city, lit up, neighbor to neighbor sees everything. Your ring cam can see the street. It's not like that. Not everybody's ring cam can actually see the street from where they are on these big properties. The sheriff today said Nancy Guthrie's life is in jeopardy. Could be a couple reasons he said that. Number one, medications were left behind in the home. Medications that she would need within 24 hours could be fatal. And it's now 72 hours since the last time she was seen. So that could be why he said her life's in jeopardy. Or he could have said it because I now have definitive sourced information saying that there was in fact blood inside and outside the home. So blood inside the home is scary because we now know she was taken against her will. Kidnapped was what the sheriff told me last night when I did my episode before. So blood inside the home, kidnapped forcefully, taken forcefully. That could probably be part of the reason why her life is in jeopardy. And Brian Enton's going to show you the pictures of the blood outside the home that he discovered today as well. The media has helped generate a lot of leads, the sheriff said. That's really important. He said, if you've got any information, 1-800-CALL-FBI. 1-800-CALL-FBI. If you know anything, even if it's tiny, the tiniest thing can lead to the biggest thing. Sheriff has said it's been helpful. They do not know what she was wearing when she was abducted, when she was kidnapped and taken from that home. They don't know if there were one or more kidnappers. Any indications she's still alive? Sheriff said, no idea. Can't tell you that. Is there a threat to the public? We were a little confused by the answer before. I think what he was trying to say was that we feel like this is an unusual circumstance. We don't think that this is going to be a serial kidnapping or whatever else has happened to Mrs. Guthrie, but there's someone out there that did this. So yeah, the threat is out there. He's not going to go as far as they did in Idaho early on and say there's no threat to the public, because Brian Koberger was out there for, over 6 weeks and he's a threat to the public, but it didn't feel like that. It didn't feel like there was no threat. It didn't feel like there was a big threat. So take that the way you will. Were there any valuables taken, ATM cards? Sheriff would not say. Sheriff wouldn't say, was there forced entry? I can tell you definitively, there was absolutely forced entry. The pacemaker information, they didn't want to talk a lot about it, but I will tell you, my reporting, my source says that the 2 a.m. separation, when the pacemaker stopped responding to the devices it was connected to, the Apple phone, the Apple Watch, that is the time they are narrowing down this kidnapping to. Yes, she was last seen at 9:45, but the kidnapping, they are pegging it to
some classic aerial shots here. There are these pools, in-ground pools, mountains.
That moment. Because that is when the pacemaker that's inside the girl, the woman, the elderly mother who was taken out of that house, it's separated. And so that is what they are now narrowing the disappearance time down to, according to my law enforcement source with knowledge of this investigation.
It's a pretty scenic place here. See this? It's pretty cool. You wouldn't think like this is where people live, but there they are.
Last seen at 9:45. But the kidnapping, they are pegging it to that moment because that is when the pacemaker that's inside the girl, the woman, the elderly mother who was taken out of that house, it's separated. And so that is what they are now narrowing the disappearance time down to, according to my law enforcement source with knowledge of this investigation. Pacemaker separates 2 a.m. That's when they believe the actual kidnapping happened. The house was turned back over to the family yesterday after 6 p.m. Again, that would be Monday, February 2nd. They processed everything. Crime scene tape went up, done with the residents, turned back over to the family, but nobody washed the blood off the front steps up to the front door. And Brian Enton was able to go up and look at it because it's not a crime scene anymore. You're going to talk to Brian in a moment about that. I think I mentioned this before, but if I didn't, they are waiting for the camera information and very frustrated. Police are very frustrated by how long it's taking to get the Nest company. I learned that it is the Nest company. It's not Ring Cams, it's not Ring.com. It's Nest cameras that were out front that were smashed. They are waiting for the corporate Nest executives to yield that information back to the sheriffs. Listen, 72 hours. It's been a long time. I can understand why.
Well, I'm sure they tested the blood at the scene. They just haven't told us whose it is yet. I mean, I'd be very shocked if they didn't. I mean, if there's blood at the scene, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to try to test it, right? Now, again, I guess how would you even check it? You would check her medical records, right, to see if it matches, I guess. Like anytime she's given blood or something.
The sheriff would be frustrated that it's taking this long. This was at, again, 1:30 today. It's about 7 hours ago. So that might have happened in the last 7 hours. Maybe the sheriff has that camera information now. And with those cameras being smashed, right? That's evidence. All of that is evidence, right? What was the tool used to smash them? What did it look like? All of that. And so when Brian...
And again, is it that it's taking a long time to pull the footage, or they already did, they're just not releasing it because they want to protect the case? It might be that too.
Anton asked the sheriff, the cameras are missing, and the sheriff wouldn't go there. Clearly, the police have taken those cameras, smashed as evidence, and those are now in evidence lockup as part of this investigation. But again, I can't reiterate enough how dark this area is. No streetlights, dark and rural. Whoever smashed those cameras could very well have been completely cloaked, and that may not help a lot. Maybe you'll see someone's gate. Maybe the exterior lights were off on the home. Who knows? Depends on what kind of Nest cam she has. Does it show night vision? I mean, there's lots of different levels that you can get. Who knows what information that will yield? Whoever smashed those cameras, what will we see? What kind of, right-handed, left-handed, walking up? What was the gait? Does it look like a man? Does it look like a woman? Hopefully that could have been ascertained before the cameras actually ended up being smashed. It's very, very disturbing because that is so...
You can see by the door where their one used to be, you can see the outline, and that's where the Nest was. And again, it's called Nest, but others are called ring cams, and you can see it. You can see it where it would be next to the door.
Completely planned, right? This isn't some random, drug addict who's just looking to rob a house. This is something far more premeditated. If the cameras, plural, are smashed, whoever did this knew there was more than one. I am going to have all of this for you in...
So that's a little contradicting a bit of what Maureen was saying. So Ashley just said this seems planned because of the smashing of multiple Nest cameras. Maureen was saying this smelled like a half-baked operation to her. Is it possible both of them are true? Maybe in the heat of the moment they become more half-baked. But so Ashley's implying the fact that they destroyed those cameras, that requires a little bit of premeditation, like they knew to do that.
Exquisite detail in just a minute. I do have to just tell you this. I have sponsors that make this podcast possible. And I just want to tell you a little bit about my latest one, because lately everything is feeling extraordinarily expensive and stressful. Air travel, gas, food, day-to-day life. But I've been getting a lot smarter about Sheriff to feel as though he needed to give more regular updates, because he said, I'm not giving another one for 2 days. Not until Thursday, February the 5th. Tuesday, the 3rd, unless warranted, unless something happens. Something happened today when Brian Enton was standing right outside in front of Nancy Guthrie's house that was unique and interesting and may have been information tipped. I'll tell you that in a moment, and I'll show you the pictures from the sky. There was a chopper up ahead. So I'll tell you that in just a moment. But it was super fascinating that the sheriff wouldn't confirm blood evidence, but Brian Enton confirmed it outside, and I have confirmed it inside. There was blood inside the home. There was blood outside the home. So let me get to some of Brian Enton's amazing reporting as well before I give you a little bit more of what my law enforcement sources told me, especially about the prime suspect and the car that was towed. That's very, very distressing. Brian also learned about forced entry into the house, and he learned of the 2 alleged ransom notes. We're going to talk at length about that. One went to TMZ, one went to a local TV station in Tucson. We have thoughts. Lots of people have thoughts. The sheriff has some thoughts, apparently. But I'll talk to Brian about that in a moment.
So let's rewind that. That was important. This is the blood splatter here. Oh, there it is.
Entry into the house, and he learned of the 2 alleged ransom notes. We're going to talk at length about that. One went
So this is the splatter here.
to TMZ, one went to a local TV station in Tucson. We have thoughts. Lots of people have thoughts. The sheriff has.
So what kind of wound would do this? A bloody nose? Doesn't look like, it looks like not like a gunshot. I don't think so. A knife? I don't know. But what do you think, chap? I really don't know.
Some thoughts, apparently. But I'll talk to Brian about that in a moment, and I will read for you what those are. I'm also going to tell you this, that the sheriff was concerned enough that he put out a statement with a QR code. Okay? Let me read this. Sheriff said, "We are aware of reports circulating about possible ransom notes, plural. It's ransom note, parentheses, S.
So the chat's saying nose and cough. That would make sense to me.
A note or notes regarding the investigation into Nancy Guthrie. We are taking all tips and leads very seriously."
So then what started the nosebleed? Was it being punched or was it something else?
Anything that comes in goes directly to our detectives who are coordinating with the FBI. We encourage anyone who may have information, any information or tips to share via this QR code. So he answered the question too during the press conference when he was asked about, were there ransom notes? Has anybody reached out to Savannah Guthrie or her family? Who takes an 84-year-old woman? What's the point? It would seem like they'd want something. And he didn't say no. He just said the same thing that you just heard. We're looking at all leads. So they may have looked at the TMZ lead right before that press conference, and they weren't ready to say whether they thought it was legit or just some hoaxer. And maybe the Tucson TV station got one as well. As a scam artist born every day. So, by the way, very illegal, very traceable. We'll get to that. Okay. Savannah put out a post today, and the Today Show, obviously this is their colleague. I'm a colleague of Savannah's. I worked with Savannah for years. We've been friends for years. We've done charity events together. She's dear, she's very dear to me, and it's breaking my heart that she is down there where she grew up in Tucson.
So someone in the chat just said the head of the FBI is headed to the place where Nancy went missing. So somewhere in Arizona.
Trying to find her mom. And she gave the Today Show a statement about where they stand at this point. This is how the Today Show aired it.
Chanel is in for Savannah once again, who remains with her family in Arizona.
Good morning, and that is where we begin this morning. The disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, Savannah's mother, and a beloved part of our...
And on a side note, she looks way younger than 84 here.
Our Today family. Authorities in Arizona...
Okay, not as much there.
Now saying the 84-year-old appears to be the victim of an abduction.
Overnight, Savannah posting this image on Instagram. Please pray. She went on to write, we believe in prayer. We believe in voices raised in unison, in love, in hope. We believe in goodness. We believe in humanity. Above all, we believe in him.
She added, thank you for lifting your prayers with ours for our beloved mom, our dearest Nancy, a woman of deep conviction.
Smart. Use mom and her name, as I was saying before, to do. Smart.
A good and faithful servant. Raise your prayers with us and believe with us that she will be lifted by them in this very moment. She goes on to say, we need you. Bring her home.
And
also, since Ashley came out with this video, I did post, we went over the 4-minute video the siblings made on Instagram. So it was Savannah and her 2 siblings, her brother and sister.
obviously, Savannah's not on the Today Show. She wasn't on yesterday either. And she will not be going to Italy to do the Winter Olympics. This is huge for Savannah. This is every 4 years. It is one of the biggest assignments. The amount of prep that it takes to do the Olympics, it's weeks and weeks and weeks of work. And she is not going. And someone is going to have to take her place and get up to speed and cover for her. But how heartbreaking that is that she's not going to be able to do that. And she will not be at the Winter Olympics at all for that coverage. Helicopters showed up above Brian Enton while he was doing a live report today, above Nancy Guthrie's house. And it was the sheriff's helicopter. And there was a guy hanging out of it. And it was low. It was low enough to see him hanging out of it and looking around. And that wasn't the only emergency vehicle either. I'm going to tell you about that when I talk to Brian. There's another vehicle that was law enforcement related. And it does speak volumes to what might have happened that sent those 2 vehicles out, the helicopter and the pickup truck. Tell you that in a moment. First, let me tell you some devastating stuff. So my law enforcement source tells me that the back door of the Guthrie home was the door that was left wide open. Was it the point of entry? Was it the point of egress? Don't know that.
So the back door is left wide open. Does that say they exited through the back door? I would say the blood does not point in that direction, right? The blood was coming out the front door. So they might have came in through the back door, but still fairly careless to not close the door, right? Or maybe they didn't care.
But it was open, wide open, and it was in the back, not the front. Brian Enton saw blood at the front door. So did a struggle happen at the front door? Was there a doorbell rung at 2 a.m.? Why was the back door open? A lot of questions there. But the back door, according to my law enforcement source, was left wide open. I told you already, 100% blood inside the house. My law enforcement source told me that police have now towed and impounded the vehicle belonging to Nancy Guthrie's daughter, Nany Guthrie. This is important because you've heard that the last point of contact with Nancy.
So Nany Guthrie, is she one of the siblings that was in the video that we showed to Savannah Guthrie? I think so.
Guthrie was when she was dropped off by her daughter at 9:45-ish at night on Saturday night. So Nany Guthrie, and possibly her husband as well, Tommaso Cioni, were the last people to see her at 9:45 at night, Saturday night. Sunday morning, 11 a.m., church members reached out to the family. Hey, your mom wasn't in church. Not normal. She's always there. What's up? Family member goes over, calls family member or members, goes to the house, calls 911, and the investigation begins. But they have towed Nany Guthrie's car. And there is some connection to Nany Guthrie's car and Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law. That would be Annie's husband, Tommaso Cioni, age 50, from Tucson, Arizona, married to Annie P. Guthrie, Savannah's sister. And my law enforcement source tells me that Tommaso Cioni is the prime suspect in this case. Again, law enforcement source tells me that Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law, married to Annie Guthrie.
So Annie Guthrie, this is her husband, and he's the number one suspect according to Ashley Banfield's source. Now, don't you think that would cause some tension, right? In that siblings IG video? Oh, by the way, your husband's the suspect. Like, what?
Savannah's sister is maybe a prime suspect in this case. At the very least, let me tamp that down, because sometimes it's the first person you're looking at, not prime as in there's no one else. Okay, so let's be really mindful of that. Families are always looked at first as well. It doesn't mean right away. Listen, Ed Smart was targeted for weeks as, without question, somebody they needed to look at. Possible suspect, right? Heartbreaking for Ed and Lois Smart, because it wasn't them who took Elizabeth, right? But that's what happens. When anything happens like this, familial abductions, the family's looked at first, and Annie and or Thomas Ocioni were the last people to see Nancy Guthrie at 9:45 at night, the night before she disappeared, abducted, kidnapped. Kidnapped was the word that the sheriff used with me. But it's very distressing to think that this law enforcement source is telling me that Thomas Ocioni is maybe a prime suspect in this case at this point, and that the car belonging to Annie has been towed and impounded and is in evidence.
I mean, if you're Savannah and the brother here, you're looking at her, Annie, and you're like, dude, like, get your man in order here. What the heck's going on? If this is true, right? If this is true.
That's the word that was used with me. This law enforcement source also said to me, who has the motive to kidnap an 84-year-old woman? The way it was described to me is, that's a burden, right? It's a burden to kidnap an 84-year-old woman with mobility issues, needing medication. That is a burden. And then this law enforcement source said, so you look at people who would have a benefit to an 84-year-old woman going away, disappearing or dying. Sometimes it's somebody who has an insurance benefit from that. Sometimes it's somebody who may benefit because there's a debt. And that may be helpful. These are just musings. They are not evidence, okay? But they are musings from people I trust implicitly due to their longevity in the business of investigating this exact kind of thing. I told you already about the pacemaker information, the law.
So someone in the chat said that Savannah might be staying with Annie and her husband. That would be interesting if true. If true, let me know if someone can confirm that.
Enforcement sources have narrowed it down to the kidnapping happening at 2 a.m. based on the pacemaker stopping at 2 a.m. That's when they believe Nancy was taken from that house. All forms of DNA were submitted, right? But the sheriff himself said that it came back. Like, so far, the details that have come back have not pointed to a suspect, which tells them that it was likely Nancy's blood, not a suspect. Or at least nothing has come back yet to point to a suspect regarding the blood. My law enforcement source said that they will be searching every single cell phone ping, the geofencing, all the rest. This source told me that this is someone who knew where the cameras were, somebody who was familiar with this home, this premises, this woman. They knew where the cameras were in order to smash those Nest cameras, plural. Okay. And as far as the TMZ ransom note, my source says that they don't believe that this is real. They think it's just troublemakers trying to insert themselves into this story. Could that change? Yes. I just want to give you a little bit of information on Thomas Ocioni, Annie Guthrie's husband, whom at this point, I am told again, may be a prime suspect in this case. He's 50, from Tucson. His bio from a website that's an Italian website, an official Italian website for the Taparulan Society, Cultural Association, the Taparulan Cultural Association, a nonprofit focused on promoting.
It's like the cover of a CD or something. This is for their band.
Contemporary artists. His bio says, I was born in San Giovanni, Valderno on June 18th, 1975. Since 2006, I have lived in Tucson, Arizona. I write when I have the chance. I study lizards. I play the electric bass. I make homemade pasta. LinkedIn reports that Thomas Sioni is a teacher at Basis Oro Valley School from 2007.
And if he did this, he's got to be a fool, though. Like, you think you're going to get away with this? And for what? What are you going to do? You're going to get away with money somehow? Are you not going to realize this is going to be one of the biggest cases in America at the time? Now that Nick Reiner and Michael McKee are in a little bit of a downturn here, like a little bit of a lull, I should say, this is the next biggest thing right now.
Until present. Says he's a primary instructor for 6th grade science and AP biology. Reverb Nation, that's a music website, says that he put out an album with a 3-man music group called Early Black. Music is apparently available, but that's all I know about Annie Guthrie's husband, who, again, one law enforcement source, very connected, highly regarded, impeccable credentials, knowledge of this investigation, says that Tommaso Sioni, Annie P. Guthrie's husband, may be the prime suspect in this case, and Annie's vehicle has been towed, impounded, and is now in evidence.
So someone in the chat said, don't overlay rational thinking to disordered people. But even disordered people have a method to the madness. A lot of times they want something. If you're a sexual sadist, you get off to violence. If you're a serial killer, that's your version of getting off. You do that. That's what you do. Narcissists apply. So to me, you wouldn't think it's rational, but to their mind, being a predator is perfectly rational. And usually they want something. It's not like they're doing it for zero. They're getting some kind of benefit out of it. That's what I would say.
Very distressing. So Brian Enton is with me from News Nation. He's been doing some incredible work since landing on the ground in Tucson. Brian, you have done, again, some outstanding reporting out in front of Nancy Guthrie's home. When the crime scene was turned over to the family, you found a blood trail.
Yeah, we did. And I was kind of surprised, Ashley, that it was not a crime scene anymore. I don't know why I just expected that they would still have some tape outside. Or, when you cover these things, they'll have like one police car that stays behind. Everybody left. I mean, it was just empty, except there were some, what I thought were family members coming and going today. I don't know who they were. So we decided, let's just go knock on the door and see if anybody is home, just to kind of see what's going on, since it's not a crime scene. It's all open back up. And so walking up to the front door, you could see that there...
The first time I've ever seen the old coworkers together here, or the former colleagues, Brian Enton, Ashley Banfield, at News Nation.
Was blood right outside the front door on the ground, like on the stoop right there, right near the front mat going in. Just, not a ton of blood, but it was definitely blood. It was all right there. And then when you looked up, you could see where the camera was, right by, almost like where it looked like a doorbell, but it was a camera, and the camera was gone.
Well, and my information from my source is that those cameras were smashed, not just the front one. There was a second one. Whoever did this knew there were two, smashed them. So presumably the fact that you saw that they're gone means that the police took them for evidence.
Yeah, well, what's interesting, though, is when I asked the sheriff, I was at the press conference, and I asked the sheriff, we noticed that the camera is gone in the front. Do you think the perpetrator took the camera? He said, we noticed that too, and all of that is under investigation. So it was kind of strange. He didn't give me an answer. Was it the perpetrator who took the camera? Was it the police who took the camera? But he acknowledged that they also noticed that the camera was gone.
I think he's having to answer in real time to, investigative information and evidence that he doesn't want out there, probably. And having to, tap dance in front of live cameras, which is really hard.
So Ashley Banfield, she stepped down from her News Nation job. Someone said she was fired, but I don't know if that's true. I think she stepped down, and she's doing her YouTube channel and her podcast full time. That's what she's doing now.
This is a small place. Tucson has barely had, massive crime. I think one of the biggest things was Gabby Giffords, 15, 20 years ago. So, this is a lot. This is a big crime for them to process, and the media attention is sort of stifling. It's really, really hard. Let's just talk a little bit about that blood trail a little bit before we go more into the cameras. But you find the blood trail at the front door. The front door is closed. At least it is now. My law enforcement source has told me the back door was wide open, which sort of gives you just so many questions. Is that where the perpetrator came in? Is that where the perpetrator went out with Mrs. Guthrie? Did Mrs. Guthrie answer the front door at 2 a.m. and there was a pitched fight and that's why the blood is there? Because I think you mentioned the blood doesn't go further out along the stones to the driveway.
Yeah, that's right. We looked and it was just in that area near the door. It's not like there were droplets that went out to where the driveway is or even in the driveway, which made me think, I mean, did they take Miss Guthrie out the front? And like you said, the back door being open, maybe they came in the back and took her out the front and into a car. And maybe that's why the blood just stopped right there. We just don't know.
I will tell you this, in my half-hour-long conversation with the sheriff last night, I said, so you think that perhaps when you say Mrs. Guthrie was taken out of that home, she did not walk out of that home, are you telling me she was carried over the threshold of the front door? And he said, I did not say the front door. So that was a clue to me. Wait, okay, not the front door. And then I learned today that the back door is open. So I am very curious. There were some erroneous reports about Mrs. Guthrie was dragged from her bed. The sheriff actually put out a statement saying that is not what I said. So we, at this point, the sheriff was walking back anybody who reported she was dragged from her bed. We don't know if the bedroom was, the epicenter of this crime yet. We don't know if there's ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, and Mrs. Guthrie comes down at 2 a.m. What's going on? And something happens at the front. But why then would the back door be wide open? It's very, very confounding. Why would the blood be in the front, but the back door is open? Or
Good question by Ashley. But I also find it troubling she would answer the doorbell at 2 a.m. as well. It's like, haven't they seen Clockwork Orange? Was the guy singing in the rain? I mean, what's going on here?
did they, like you said, come in the back door, go up to the bedroom, but then take her out the front?
Yeah, and I'm just looking behind me because there's more cars in the driveway now. Step out of the way. You see that white Volvo, and then there's a truck. I think they've maybe brought security people in to just kind of keep an eye on the house. But one thing that you don't know until you're here, I didn't realize, is this isn't like a normal neighborhood, Ashley. It's right in the foothills. Every house I would say is on at least an acre, maybe 2, 3, or 4 acres. They're almost like little ranches. And it's pitch. I mean, we've got our lights on for, because we're doing our camera work, but it's pitch black out here. There is not one light out here. And it's a ways to the next house. So I'm just thinking if they came in through the back door, to take her out the back door, though, it's not like there'd be a little alley back there. I mean, there's like cactus. This is not, it's like kind of wild land out here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But whoever smashed the cameras maybe thought it would be an easier way to get in the back door to smash a camera without being seen, go in the back and then maybe smash the front camera from the inside of the house coming out. Who knows? I mean, but whoever it was, my law enforcement source said they knew there were those cameras and where they were in order to smash them. We're getting to that in a bit, but helicopters overhead while you were doing your live shot earlier today. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, that kind of came out of nowhere. All of a sudden, there was a sheriff helicopter that got very, very low over the house with 2 men looking out and down. And my first thought was like, oh, sometimes they'll just kind of come by to come look real quick and then they'll leave. But they stayed for over an hour over the house and then across the street. And then in like kind of, again, it's almost like fields out here, but with a lot of cactuses in the vicinity of the house, very low, looking around. And then we saw a search and rescue truck out here, which we hadn't seen all.
That's interesting. So what do you think that helicopter was doing? What are they looking for? Are they looking for a body? I mean, what are they looking for in that case? What do you think, chat?
All day. So I don't know if there was kind of like, hey, we left some stone unturned and we just want to go back out and look one more time, or if there was a specific tip that came in, something specific that they were looking for. But it was very clear that they were looking for something. Because again, at first I thought like, oh, the helicopter's doing a pass. The sheriff's office just wants to show that they're keeping an eye on the area. But no, they were searching for something.
Yeah, and I think Jennifer Coffendoffer mentioned they might have gotten.
I love saying Jennifer Coffendoffer, but someone in the chat just said they were looking for tracks. And that would make sense if that's what they were doing, to see if someone bolted by foot somewhere, or if they exited by, I don't know what. There could have been multiple people exiting, right? Some people exit via car, some people exit the back. I don't know.
Called a tip, and they were out trying to find whatever it was they thought might be within the vicinity of the house. Or maybe they thought whoever took her couldn't manage for too long. And maybe there was something in the wilds. Like you said, it's pretty rural out there. The other thing that's upsetting, and I don't want to think this, is that, you know, if you're going to leave a body somewhere, there are so many wild animals in that area at night. It's very, very hard to keep the integrity of a potential body, if there is one, you know, intact for a long time with all the wildlife. And let's hope that that's not the situation. The ransom notes, let's talk a little bit about that. One to TMZ that was detailed about what she was wearing, details inside the house, and then asking for Bitcoin. And another one to a local TV station. Let me see which one it is. I think it's KOLD TV in Tucson. KOLD, yeah. They, you know, my law enforcement source says he's not putting a lot of stock in that. There's a lot of crazies out there that want to insert themselves. But what are you hearing from where you are?
Yeah, so you mentioned with the TMZ note, we learned that in the note there were some specifics about what Nancy was wearing and then specifics about the inside of the house, but we don't know if those are true. I mean, like that was just coming from TMZ. We don't know if it actually, you know, is going to check out with what she was actually wearing.
Yeah, like TMZ got it. Like TMZ
Right.
got that.
And it was
It's
an
just
email,
that,
by the way.
In an email, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
But is it just some, you know, lunatic who's going to be traced and charged? You know, that, and also the sheriff said that they don't know what she was wearing. So how could you know, where anyway? That's part of the idea here, is that emails can be traced.
Yeah, they can be traced. I don't know. I think the whole thing is a little weird. Like, why would the kidnapper reach out to TMZ? And then I noticed that TMZ, Harvey Levin, was saying they were having a hard time getting in touch with the sheriff initially, which I just found to be kind of strange if the sheriff was taking it that seriously. But the sheriff's office did put out a statement later saying, acknowledging these and saying that they were investigating. Yeah, there it is. And when I was at the press conference earlier, we asked, have there been any ransom notes? And I thought it was interesting. Again, the sheriff didn't answer the question. He just said, we're looking into every. And yesterday he was much more open, Ashley. I mean, you had him on your podcast. He was all over the place. He was answering every question. He was kind of like hard to follow it sometimes. I'm like, he was talking about his gut feeling about things. And I'm like, is it really what he's saying actually factor? Anyway, but today.
And so again, people are saying in the chat, if it was about money, why didn't they take anything from the house? And that's a damn good question. Maybe they just didn't have that in mind. Maybe they had bigger fish to fry than some sort of appliance. I mean, maybe, I don't know, they were looking for jewelry. Jewelry is often a common one that contractors will often steal from the elderly. Not all of them, of course, but sometimes, because, you know, they can flip it.
He was much, much more careful.
Yeah. And obviously, like I said before, they're a little bit new at this. I mean, they don't get this kind of stuff going on in this rural area in Pima County. But, you know, upsetting just to think that somebody, if it's true, may be trying to insert themselves. Let's get to some of the other breaking stuff that my source told me that's just kind of blood curdling, that they did indeed find blood inside the house. You found the blood outside the house. The confirmation from my law enforcement sources that there was blood inside the house as well. And that they have towed Annie Guthrie's car. Annie Guthrie being Savannah Guthrie's sister and the last person to have dropped Mrs. Guthrie off at 9:45 the night before, but that they have towed and impounded her car into evidence. That is sort of, the ground shook when I learned that.
That's interesting, because we had heard that the FBI was at the sister's house, the Savannah sister's house, earlier tonight. I hadn't heard the towing of the car, and I just kind of assumed like they were over there talking to them, trying to get more information about, you know, what was going on in Nancy.
So why the heck would they impound that car, though? Tow and impound. They said Annie dropped the mother off at 9:45 the night before. Where did the son-in-law come into play with this? I'm a little confused now.
His life in the days up to this, but yeah, the towing of the car, I'm trying to sort of wrap my mind around the reasons that they may have have done that.
I mean, I guess I can understand. I'm trying to think of all the reasons why it's not a big deal. And
Right.
it's the last person to have seen Nancy Guthrie. My law enforcement source says, who takes an 84-year-old woman with limited mobility? It's a burden for the kidnapper to do so, unless someone has a vested interest in gaining something from it, like insurance benefits or a family debt that needs paid off, anything like that. This was just the musings, not the evidence of this investigator. But the other sort of earth-shattering information that this source told me is that Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law, Annie's husband, Thomas Ocioni, is now maybe considered prime suspect in this case.
Wow. Yeah. So I haven't heard the most, like I said, the most I heard was that the FBI was at their house earlier today. I haven't heard that at all. I don't know much about them. I mean, I think they were the last ones with her, right? On Friday night.
Two
so
reports
I mean,
that Annie dropped her off, or that Annie and Tomaso dropped her off. It's a little unclear, but this law enforcement source specifically pointed to her car being towed.
That's a big thing to be unclear about, right? So was it Annie dropping her off, or Annie and her husband dropping her off? And I mean, again, if you're the last person to be seen with them, you're going to be on the list, right or wrong, right? That's just how it goes. That's why they mentioned the Elizabeth Smart case. Her parents were on the list, but it turns out they shouldn't have been. Like, it was that person they hired to do the job that had abducted her with his wife and kept her for 9 months, by the way.
Impounded and in evidence. And the son-in-law, Tommaso Cioni, age 50, may be the prime suspect in the case.
Well, and it would make sense even if they hopefully did absolutely nothing wrong and this is their mom, and it's like makes your heart hurt. I mean, I feel terrible for everyone in the family, but it would make sense that they don't want to leave any stone unturned. So even if investigators are thinking like, we don't think these people had anything to do with it, but the fact that they were the last ones with her, she was in that car the night before, like maybe they're just going to check everything regardless.
And that, my source said there's a lot of familiarity. This kidnapper had a lot of familiarity with this home, with the 2 different Nest cams that were smashed.
So again, a lot of familiarity equals someone they might know. And someone else in the chat just said it seems like her body was close to the ground. That very well could be too.
And that they said an 84-year-old woman with limited mobility is not an easy person to kidnap. There has to be a benefit in some way. If you think about a break-in, you've caught me breaking into your house. Now you've seen me. Well, you don't typically kill someone and take the body or take the live person with you. That's not usually how a burglary that's foiled ends. It's far more complicated and odd. The mystery is more. It just takes you in a different direction, your thoughts anyway. The other thing is that my source said they are obviously looking at all cell phone pings and geofencing to find out what was in that neighborhood. This is the kind of thing that, trips up just about anybody. It may have tripped up Dr. Michael McKee in the Tepe murders. He left his phone in the hospital, but the car was seen. Brian Kohberger shuts his phone off right as he's leaving and puts his phone back on right as he's returning home, right around the times of the murders. These are things that some people just don't think about.
Yeah, and it's not just phones. I was talking to a FBI agent who just retired actually from this area earlier, and he was reminding me that it's iPads, it's like all sorts, it's iWatch, it's all sorts of electronics now. Yeah, that can track you. And he was emphasizing to me that is the number one thing that the FBI is doing right now, and that they can literally like narrow it down in such a way through the cell phone towers to who was right in this area, and then try to follow that device. And he thinks that's really what's going on behind the scenes right now. And there's also just like questions about, do they have a suspect that we just don't know about? I mean, I was thinking back to Brian Kohberger earlier when you and I were talking every night, and it was like, gosh, these police, they don't seem like they know anything. And then come to find out they knew a lot. Do they just have their poker face on in these press conferences, and they actually know a lot?
And it's true. They do. I mean, that has to be, we have to be kept in the dark about things because they've got to keep the suspect in the dark about a lot of things, Super interesting though, just about.
So Ashley said it there, right? We were talking about that. We have to be kept in the dark about some things. And it's interesting to me that the sheriff denied all of this. So it makes me think that he wants us to be in the dark about this son-in-law being a suspect, perhaps. But I don't know.
About the fact that family members are always number one. Like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, Ed Smart. Ed Smart was like one of the number one, suspects in the disappearance of his daughter Elizabeth. Because does the boogeyman really come into your house and steal your daughter out of her bed beside her little sister? I doubt it. Well, he did. The boogeyman did come in. Brian David Mitchell did come in and steal Elizabeth, and it wasn't Ed Smart. But the way law enforcement works is you have to start from the inside of the concentric circles and then work out to any potential other suspects. So if this ends up being prime suspect, but not the only one, and we're just eliminating him, that could definitely be the case. But I also feel like, would you tow and impound the car of Savannah Guthrie's sister, of Nancy Guthrie's daughter? And if there weren't something bigger to it, I mean, it's very loud. It's a very big move.
Do you think it's strange? And you've been in the bigger media world more than I have. Like, do you think it's strange that Savannah Guthrie hasn't said anything? I mean, could that?
So this is not true anymore. She did say something. But before they go into the rest of this, who might be unhappy with Savannah Guthrie? What enemies might she have? That's also the question law enforcement is going to be asking themselves. What enemies does she have? Did she make someone unhappy? Did she have any unfavorable reporting? Her TV show, co-hosting Today, NBC's Today, morning show Today, apparently it's a pretty bland show. They're not really coming out with hot takes on that show. So who could her enemies be? What could they want from her? Open question for the chat.
Be an indication of maybe some drama in the family behind the scenes?
So many things could be happening there. If I were in Savannah's shoes, I would be mute. I would be, catatonic. You're a big media person. This massive thing is swirling around you. You don't even know what to say and what not to say. You have a million friends in the media business. Everybody wants a comment from you. And the police may have just said, we'd like you not to say anything. And I know Savannah. Savannah is a lawyer. She is a long-studied crime reporter. I met her at Court TV. We worked together at Court TV. She is brilliant. And so Savannah will be doing the smartest things to aid in this investigation. She will do everything that the police are asking her to do, and she will not go rogue. I know that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. The other aspect of that is that if the FBI was over at Annie's house, they've towed her car, they're looking at her husband. If I were Savannah, that would be enough for me to just say, I need to just stay out of the limelight. I need to stay out of everything.
Yeah, it makes sense. I was just wondering about that because if there is a family dynamic here, might be a reason for her to, like you said, just sort of stay quiet. Although I hate to even think that. I mean, I hope that's not the case. I know you have your source, but it's like, gosh, that's just terrible.
I was interviewing Ed Smart and Lois and having to ask them about that. It was awful and so awkward and so uncomfortable. But I do understand it's how law enforcement has to work. They can't ignore that or they wouldn't be doing their jobs. What about the neighbors? Have you heard from anybody out there?
Yeah, we've talked to several neighbors. People loved Nancy. We're hearing a lot of that. I mean, she lived here.
So after this video, Brian did talk to that woman in the car that said she was trying to find a police officer to tell them about the people casing the neighborhood. That could be unrelated if the thing with the son-in-law is a thing. But again, often it is someone they know. Often it is people close to the family. So we just don't know yet.
Since the early 90s. I think 1992 is when she moved in, which a lot of people were saying, oh, Savannah probably bought her the house. It's a really nice house. I mean, apparently not, because she's lived here for a long time. So a lot of people know her. And people are on edge about the whole thing. The police have been to all of the neighbors' houses. There was one neighbor who told me police have been there twice looking for videos. So it seems like, we've done other stories where you show up and you're like kind of surprised, gosh, how are we the first ones here? That doesn't seem like the case here. People have been going to all the different neighbors' houses. There was one neighbor who told me that they were even trying to talk to the landscapers, because there's a lot, they're really nice houses out here, and there's a lot of like landscape crews and stuff. So they were talking to them because they kind of know the area. So yeah, people have been cooperating with the police for sure.
Well, I remember a case, Nancy Woodrum in Paso Robles, California, well over a decade ago. Elderly woman disappeared from her home. It was this sort of freaked me out a little because the seems so similar, but it ended up being a painter that worked at the house. So they will be canvassing. And I think the sheriff did say that to me. They're canvassing every single person, from caretakers to landscapers to pool, service contractors, etc. Anybody who had any kind of connection at that house, that would be absolutely number one. They would do that right away and get alibis and check for DNA. The other interesting thing is, Brian, that the sheriff today said that they have tested some of the DNA that was discovered at the house, but that nothing that's come back so far has indicated a suspect.
Right. They confirmed that the DNA connected back to Nancy.
Okay. So the DNA at the home connected back to Nancy. So that blood, Nancy, not anyone else's.
Which I guess is no real surprise. She lived in the house, but they wouldn't say what. Was that blood that was tested? Was that the blood outside that was tested?
So I misspoke. They don't know. Ashley's speculating. Brian's going to guess that it is, but we don't know for sure it was the blood.
I do too, but they didn't confirm it.
I mean, you're seeing blood outside that's it's still red. I could see your video still red. You're testing that. You're testing that right away, because what if there was a pitched fight and a knife was being used and, the assailant was cut? There'd be mixed blood. So that would be the first thing but it was devastating to hear that so far nothing's come back, indicating a suspect. This is going to be a hard one. This will be a really, really hard one. Like you said, it's so dark out there and so rural, and it's not like a lot of ring cameras and license plate readers are going to lead to whatever vehicle. And I do say vehicle. Nancy Guthrie couldn't move more than 50 yards on her own. She needed to be conveyed in some kind of a vehicle.
I wonder if they already have a vehicle description, because with the FBI being involved so early, and there are traffic cameras out like on the main road out here, and they're just not giving it to us at this point for a specific reason.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, they're going to look at every single vehicle that was in that area and find out who they were, where they were, who they were with. That's not tricky. That's what led us to Dr. Michael McKee in the Tepe murders.
Yeah.
What am I missing?
I think you covered it pretty well. I mean, we hit the ransom. The blood is really alarming. The cameras, which you had new information on. I don't know if you caught the press conference, Ashley.
I did.
It was a little strange. I mean, there was not a lot of new information. The FBI was there for the first time. They had the special agent in charge of Tucson who was there along with the sheriff. The FBI was not there yesterday. I thought it was interesting. The sheriff started by saying, well, I said some things maybe I shouldn't have said yesterday. And, I had to do all these interviews. It was just kind of strange. I thought, like you said, I guess they don't deal with that a lot here. And then I thought it was interesting that he said, next press conference will be Thursday.
That's right.
Yeah.
No updates unless needed.
Correct. And I was just like, okay, kind of like nothing to see here, everybody. It's just a little odd, I thought.
You know what? I thought it was strange when he said no updates until Thursday, unless and until something happens. And then when I got my information from my law enforcement source, I thought, oh,
yeah,
maybe it's because you do have your prime suspect. And that's why you're saying we don't need to do any updates right now. I don't know. Again, it's a great, impeccable source that I have, extraordinarily connected to this. So, and somebody who's very high in law enforcement too. So, I don't have any reason not to believe that. I do want to mention that there was dispatch chatter, which was super interesting. Dispatch audio that was like dispatch talking to responding units.
Nancy, a white female, 84 years of age, 5'2" medium build, color blue. Nancy has high blood pressure, pacemaker, and cardiac issues.
saying that there was high blood pressure medication, a pacemaker, and cardiac issues. So they seemed to know right away, even as before they got there, that there was some medical issue with this missing person. Maybe that came from the
Interesting.
family. Yeah, really
Well, and
interesting. Right?
you've heard right about the pacemaker connecting to the iWatch, and she was charging her iWatch in the room, and they were able to review the data in the iWatch, and the last time the pacemaker connected to the iWatch was at 2 a.m. So that's sort of how they've been able to. I just want to look again and see what. Yeah, it's interesting. This must be security out here.
And taking pictures just to say what things look like out there.
Yeah, Brian's definitely a little more reserved than Ashley. Ashley throws it out there. Now, Maureen's bold, but she doesn't really take, I would say, careless chances about things. There's a difference.
My source said to me that the separation from the pacemaker at 2 a.m. is the time of abduction. That's what the police believe. They refused to narrow the window for us in the press conference today, but my law enforcement source said, yes, it's 2 a.m. That's when they believe she was abducted / kidnapped. The sheriff said kidnapped to me. I don't think there's a big difference. And that they believe that it absolutely happened at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, which would make sense. And again, just as dark as it is out here, I'll just show you. Like if I pick up my camera, my phone, or my, we have all our lights, but look like down the street, Ashley, it's like, you can see what it's like out here. It's like totally pitch black. So
only thing you can see are the vehicles. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Makes it real hard for an investigation, Brian. My God. Well, listen, you were unbelievable today in what you were able to I think the blood trail is some of the biggest news that's come out of this, as well as the notion that that Annie and Tomaso's vehicle is being, has been impounded, is in evidence, and that they may be considering him a prime suspect. It's very disturbing. It's very distressing. But listen, thank you, because I know you're so busy. Every single show on News Nation you've been on and updating them all, and just getting your crew out there, fantastic. Dave and Mo, congratulate them for the work they're doing as well. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate this.
Yeah, it's always good to see you, Ashley. I'll see you.
You too.
Probably tomorrow. All right.
Look at Brian, so awkward there at the end. It's funny.
A disturbing discovery on the front steps of Nancy Guthrie's home: blood. The 84-year-old mom of Today Show anchor Savannah Guthrie vanished late Saturday night, and now, as accusations are spiraling on social media, the sheriff in Pima County is firing back, calling claims false information. We're on the case, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Hey guys, real quick before we start this episode of On the Case, which is one of the most watched shows on YouTube, I need to talk about our partner and sponsor.
I just think Brian doesn't have the chemistry with Ashley that he does with Maureen. Like, that should be something interesting to go over. Watch the chemistry between Brian and Maureen when they talk versus Brian and Ashley. It's a little bit different, right?
Morgan & Morgan, America's largest personal injury law firm. They're a firm with more than 1,000 attorneys who have recovered $25 billion, plural, and it's unclear exactly whose phones they're analyzing. Now, this is new video I want to show you. This is from News Nation, and this is what looks like blood found on the front steps of Nancy Guthrie's home near Tucson, Arizona. And you can see there does appear to be blood on the front steps of the house. You might look at this and say it appears to be the amount that someone might lose if they have like a serious bloody nose, but the Pima County Sheriff, they won't confirm this information and whether this was actually blood related to the case of Nancy Guthrie and what may have happened to her in the middle of the night between Saturday and Sunday when she did not show up for church. Now, the sheriff will confirm that they were able to find DNA that they submitted to a lab. They won't say what that DNA was, whether that DNA was blood, but they say the DNA does belong to Nancy Guthrie. Now, there's also another potential piece of evidence missing from Nancy's house that we'll talk about here in just a moment.
Nancy, a white female, 84 years of age, 5'2" medium build, powder blue. Thing after 2,200 hours as of yesterday. Nancy has high blood pressure, pacemaker, and cardiac issues.
So what you're hearing there, that's the newly uncovered audio of what a dispatcher said when the call went out that Nancy Guthrie was missing on February 1st. We hear that dispatcher mention that Nancy Guthrie has a pacemaker, she has high blood pressure, and she has cardiac issues. You remember the sheriff of Pima County said she's incredibly sharp mentally, but physically she has some limitations where she wouldn't be able to walk 50 yards on her own. Now, the pacemaker, that also is a very key part of this story.
And that's the thing, right? When you can't walk alone for 50 yards, maybe at that point, perhaps not the best to live on your own. But again, not every case is going to be exactly the same.
Because it's helping put the timeline together of when Nancy may have been taken from her home. Now, as a reminder, the sheriff said that Nancy was taken against her will in the middle of the night. They say when they walked into her house, they realized what they were dealing with was a crime scene and that she did not leave that home willingly, that someone must have come in there and taken her from that home. Now, Fox News Digital says that the pacemaker that Nancy Guthrie had, that is synced to her Apple Watch. And the watch was still on the charger near her bed when deputies arrived at her home the next day. They also say they have her cell phone, which was found at her house. And that pacemaker, according to this Fox News Digital report.
All right, we didn't even hear this before, or if we did, I missed it. But that's her cell phone. And a lot of Nest videos are also on the cell phone. So it's smashing the Nest, make it so that that video is not on the phone. I wouldn't think so. I would think it would get everything up until that point that it's smashed, right? Which would also explain perhaps why they went in through the back door, right? So that the ring, or the Nest wouldn't catch them.
Synced to her watch last at around 2:00 in the morning Sunday. So here's what we know when it comes to the final time that anyone had seen Nancy Guthrie. And it brings us back to Saturday night. Law enforcement says it was between 9:30 and 9:45 in the evening that Savannah Guthrie's older sister, Nancy Guthrie's daughter, Annie, dropped Nancy off at her house after they had had dinner. Now, Nancy lives alone in this home north of Tucson, Arizona. Now, we don't know much about what happened next. Deputies were called at 12:15 in the afternoon on Sunday after Nancy didn't show up for church. She is very much a devout churchgoer. So when she was a no-show Sunday morning, that was a major cause for concern. The sheriff says that Nancy's family was first notified that she was missing around 11 o'clock in the morning on Sunday.
We do believe that Nancy was taken from her home against her will, and that's where we're at.
So the sheriff has been trying not to release too much information to the media over the last couple of days, but there has been a lot of speculation out there when it comes to this story. You have a lot of media outlets putting out pieces of information from anonymous sources that authorities have had to respond to. And one of those pieces of information that deputies haven't confirmed, but they also haven't denied, are these alleged ransom notes that were sent to media outlets on Tuesday. TMZ was the first to report that they received one. Then you had several other outlets, including local TV stations in Tucson, saying that someone had emailed them a ransom note as well. So
Now, Shorty mentioned something that I didn't even think about. Shorty is the Sophie Sleuth, S-Dubs. But maybe Savannah is more of a favorite. I wouldn't necessarily say golden child. I don't like using the terms like that unless I think something's going on with the mother. But in this case, I don't think that at all. There's no reason to think that. So, but it is possible that Savannah was the favorite and maybe the other sibling was jealous. Certainly a possibility.
Z says that they received this note Tuesday morning. And the note reportedly demanded a specific and substantial amount of Bitcoin, millions of dollars of Bitcoin, be sent to a specific Bitcoin address. TMZ says they were able to verify that the Bitcoin address was real. And they also say that the note gives a deadline for the money to be sent and what TMZ calls an element of or else. So the sheriff's office posted this on social media in response to the amount of talk about these ransom notes, these alleged ransom notes that were being sent out to the media outlets. And this is what the sheriff had to say about it. Quote, "We are aware of reports circulating about possible ransom notes regarding the investigation into Nancy Guthrie. We are taking all tips and leads very seriously. Anything that comes in goes directly to our detectives who are coordinating with the FBI." So that's not a confirmation that these letters are legit, but it's not a denial either. And then you have this morning, the Today Show reported that the ransom notes were not substantiated. TMZ also claimed that the note had specifics about an item that is specific to Nancy Guthrie. So that's one part of the story. We'll see what else comes of that as this investigation continues on. But I want to go back to this video that was shot by News Nation right on the front steps of Nancy Guthrie's home in Tucson. Now, it's been noted that you can see this mount where something like a Ring doorbell camera would go, but the device itself, the camera, is not there. And it's unclear if that camera had been set up before the abduction or whether it was taken down by someone who potentially abducted Nancy Guthrie, or was it a piece of evidence taken by law enforcement? It's interesting that the sheriff would not answer that question when he was asked at a news conference.
Sheriff, we noticed that the camera on the front of the house is missing. Do you believe the perpetrator purposely took
That's Brian Hitton.
the camera?
Don't know that. We're looking into that as well. Listen.
I do want to note, though, and anybody who has a Ring doorbell camera knows this, if she did have a working Ring camera, she would have an account that records on that camera, and then it gets sent up to the cloud. Deputies say they have Nancy's phone. The FBI says that they are analyzing phones, plural, but it's unclear whose phones they're looking at.
In terms of what the FBI is doing, we are providing the following support. Primarily, it's analytical and technical support in the following ways. We're downloading and analyzing cell phones, obtaining cell tower information, conducting interviews, and providing any and all investigative support that the Sheriff's Department needs. We're looking at this from every angle, but we need your help.
There's also a report that we do need to talk about today because it is making the rounds involving an alleged, quote, prime suspect in the case. So you have journalist Ashley Banfield on her podcast, Drop Dead Serious. And overnight between Tuesday and Wednesday, she dropped a bombshell in this podcast claiming that she has an anonymous law enforcement source very close to this investigation, someone really in the know. And that source is telling her that Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law is, quote, prime suspect in this case. Now, that source also reportedly told Ashley Banfield that the back door of Nancy Guthrie's home was found wide open. Remember, you have blood on the front steps of the house, which law.
So Rosemary asks, is it just protocol to seize the last vehicle she was in just to make sure everything's kosher? That's a possibility. That's certainly a possibility.
Enforcement, they haven't really given any information about that. And then you have the back door to this home wide open. Banfield also says that sources reportedly tell her that blood was found inside the house. And on top of that, she claims that law enforcement have impounded the vehicle belonging to Annie Guthrie, who is Savannah's older sister. And remember, she was the one who saw Nancy Guthrie last because she was the one who dropped her off after dinner Saturday night between 9:30, 9:45. Now, that vehicle may have been the last place that Nancy was seen after Annie dropped her mom off. So that's obviously a major alleged development in this story if that turns out to be true. We reached out to the sheriff's office to see if there was any validity to that, and they released a statement, and it appears that they're pushing back. and in some ways blasting the report. The department says, quote, "At this point, investigators have not identified a suspect or person of interest in this case. Detectives continue to speak with anyone who may have had contact with Mrs. Guthrie. Detectives are working closely with the Guthrie family. While we appreciate the public's concern, the sharing of unverified accusations or false information is irresponsible and does not assist the investigation. No suspect or person of interest has been identified at this time."
So that's some strong words there. And that seems to be directly calling out Ashley Banfield, right?
End quote. So as the search for Nancy Guthrie continues, Savannah Guthrie has not made any public appearances. It's certainly not a surprise. You won't see her on the Today Show at 30 Rock as this search is continuing on. And she also reportedly is not going to be part of NBC's Olympic coverage in Italy. Those games begin on Friday with the opening ceremonies that she was going to be hosting. She did post this, though, on Instagram, very powerful post on Instagram to her 1.2 million followers there. And it's a graphic that reads, "Please pray." And in the caption, Savannah Guthrie writes, quote, "We believe in prayer. We believe in voices raised in unison, in love and hope. We believe in goodness. We believe in humanity. Above all, we believe in him. Thank you for lifting your prayers with ours for our beloved mom, our dearest Nancy, a woman of deep conviction, a good and faithful servant. Raise your prayers with us and believe with us that she will be lifted by them in this very moment. We need you. He will keep in perfect peace those whose hearts are steadfast, trusting in the Lord." A verse of Isaiah for all time, for all of us. Bring her home. Savannah Guthrie is one of the most recognizable faces in TV news. She's been the host of the Today Show since 2012. She grew up in Tucson, Arizona. She also went to college at the University of Arizona in Tucson. Now, she has two siblings. She has a brother and then her older sister, Annie, who we've talked about. Her dad died when she was a teenager of a heart attack, and she is incredibly close to her mom, and she's also incredibly close to her sister. She's spoken publicly about those bonds. Both of them have made appearances on the Today Show. And you take a look at this picture here. This is a picture that Savannah posted on her Facebook with her mom after Christmas this year. Now, it's unclear also who had access to Nancy Guthrie's home. She lived by herself, but when you think of some of the medical issues that the sheriff has said.
By the way, if you're here, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I almost go live every single night of the week, and we talk about true crime, current events, sometimes politics, but often narcissism, coercive control, abusive behaviors, etc. A lot of true crime, though, too.
Said that she had, like, did she have home caretakers? Did she have people who came and helped with lawn work? That information isn't entirely clear. Again, we know that she was a regular churchgoer, and we know that she was incredibly close to her family and that her older daughter, Annie, lives in Tucson, and that they had dinner on the evening before Nancy Guthrie went missing. So there's just a lot of questions at this point. The sheriff is not releasing a lot of information. He holds this news conference on Wednesday. There wasn't a lot of major developments coming out of there. And the sheriff says, really at this point, they are going to be responding to breaking news if and when they give another update. Now, the fact that there were reportedly signs of forced entry in the home, that's been reported as well. That could tell you that it was someone who was not regularly at the house, but that would be speculation because it does not seem like there is a lot of information at this point, at least confirmed by authorities, of where they may be looking when it comes to this search. Then you have this big concern about the medication. The sheriff says that Nancy needs that medication, and it could be life-threatening if she doesn't have it. It's medication that the sheriff, in fact, said that she could die without within 24 hours. And we have obviously gone beyond that time frame now in our third day of this search. The sheriff did say that she has some physical ailments. We talked about the dispatch chatter where you hear about the pacemaker, the high blood pressure, but it's also important to note just how mentally sharp people who know Nancy Guthrie, how sharp they say that she is. Now, I want to put this up on the screen. This is the number that you can call if you're watching this, if you know of any information related to Nancy Guthrie and where she may be. It's the Pima County Sheriff's Department. The number to call, 520-351-4900. Joining us now to talk more about this case, private criminal defense investigator, also founder of We Are the Essentials, Billy Lane. Always great to have you on Law and Crime to break down these searches and where we're at this point. For Nancy Guthrie, we're now 3 days, 3+ days, since she was last seen and has been missing. What's some of the evidence that sticks out to you at this point about where law enforcement may be looking?
I think the fact of the crime scene, that's where it all starts at. Her home. Did the person have access to the home? Was there forced entry based on some reports I'm seeing? They're saying there was forced entry into the home. Did she know this person? Did she open the door for them? So all those clues are going to add up, and the fact that there is blood on the scene, we're assuming that it's more likely her.
And again, if it's 2 a.m., the fact she would open the door leads you to believe it might have been someone she knew, right? That's what that tells me. Now, forced entry, that part's a little iffy to me. What does that mean?
Blood, but there again, she might have injured her captor, and this may be a situation of some type of self-defense. These are very complex, and I think the most important thing here is that the police department is trying to keep information in-house about what's going on so they can keep the case in-house, so they understand the facts, because as the facts gets out here, then everybody's going to know it, so they won't know who's actually involved and who's not.
Yeah, and it seems like it's a tough challenge for law enforcement, because you have so many media outlets covering this story, and there's so many different anonymous sourcing from within law enforcement, it appears, coming out and putting stories out there. So the sheriff having a tough time there. The forced entry part of it, if that's true and there was forced entry, because if there was no forced entry, you might look at that and say, okay, this is definitely someone who knew her, had been to the home, knows how to get in the house. How does the fact that it appears, at least from some of these reports, that there was forced entry in the home, how does that impact who you look at as an investigator?
Well, I mean, it really depends on how smart this person is. They may know her, created a forced entry scenario, so law enforcement would look outside of the family themselves or people who knew her. I think that somebody knew her pattern, either through surveillance or through just knowing her. It might have been somebody that wasn't close enough to have access to the home. Maybe somebody who worked on the property, who knew who she was and how important she was, and realized that this could have been an opportune situation for them to capitalize on.
Yeah, and it's just, there's just so much unknown at this point. We've seen, at the same time, I mean, we've seen cases of all different kinds where law enforcement at a news conference makes it seem like they don't know where they are in the investigation, but they're actually working on some pretty solid leads behind the scenes. And we'll see if that's the case in this one. This ransom note situation was interesting because it came out yesterday, first with TMZ, but then you have these like local television stations in Tucson getting these ransom notes as well. I know the Today Show had said that it seems that they're unsubstantiated. I guess, how do you know as an investigator whether a ransom note is legit or not?
It's very difficult. I think in talking about the ransom note, I would tell you that based on the information they provided in that note, you would be able to tell whether it could be verified or not. I would highly doubt that somebody would try and ruse law enforcement, or maybe they were just rusing the news outlets to try to get more exposure. So maybe they sent it to the news outlet thinking, hey, they don't know what's went on in the crime scene, and if we put some details in there, there's a better chance that they're going to publicize this note.
How often in cases you've seen, because I mean, whoever would do it, if this is not, whoever certainly would kidnap an 84-year-old woman is one thing, but the other part is like, if this is a fake ransom note, like, I mean, how common is it? You have people out there that are just going to say, hey, it's an emotional situation. Maybe Savannah Guthrie has a lot of money. I'm sending a ransom note and I'm going to try to take.
Now it makes me wonder, what would be the penalty for doing something like that? You write a fake ransom note. I guess at that point it would be theft, right? Theft, and I'm sure there's another crime in there too. Interfering with a criminal investigation.
Advantage of this family in their worst moment.
You would be surprised how many times that happens in the small cases that we work. People will reach out requesting money for information to their loved ones because they understand that the family is going through crisis, and at that point they will be willing to do almost anything to get their loved one back. So there are people out there that capitalize on these situations, even in small, I wouldn't say small, but even in less popular searches like we were involved in, we see that all the time. And we tell the family, expect this is going to happen. And, talk to us and let us vet the information that you're getting.
Going back to the forced entry part of it, because I think of just other cases we've done, and we don't know by forced entry doesn't mean that the door.
Now, the forced entry part is very interesting to me as well, because this would determine, okay, they break in.
Or was jammed. Doesn't mean that someone came in through a window. Like what evidence it is, I don't know. But it seems like if you are someone who regularly doesn't do this, kidnap people, that there would be an opportunity to leave a lot of evidence behind if you have to physically break your way into a house.
Absolutely. And it also creates noise. It creates attention. It's risky to do that. So now, based on some of the information we're seeing about her pacemaker, this might have happened late at night when others weren't around. This might have been a calculated scenario. But there again, we have to think about this because this looks like a kidnapping, but could be something else. And the kidnapping is just a cover up. This could have been an intent to harm her for retaliation about something. And it's all covered up by a kidnapping, or the whole kidnapping portion of it could be totally unfounded because somebody decided to try and capitalize on some money from a situation they're not even involved in. And we have those hackers. You have people on the internet who looks at these scenarios that are out of this country who are trying to get people to put money behind a bad situation. Like I said, we see that in our searches almost every time.
The pacemaker part of it, and I don't know a ton about pacemakers, but I know there was a report out there that the last time it synced with her Apple Watch was like 2 in the morning on Sunday. And if that's the case, does that mean that someone would have potentially known that the Apple Watch was connecting to it? Or is that something where the pacemaker, I guess, would disconnect if it's not around the Apple Watch? Because pacemakers in a lot of ways they're constantly taking in information, right? Like if they don't have a track on the pacemaker, would that mean?
So the question would be, how far away from the phone do you need to be for it to be disconnected? How far do you have to be because the pacemaker's in you? How far do you have to be away from the phone? 50 feet? 100 feet? 100 yards? Can't be that far though, right?
That somebody could have potentially turned it off or known how to do that.
I'm not familiar with the inner workings of a pacemaker, but I am familiar with electronic devices. I did computer forensics for quite some years. And I will tell you, it's just like your Apple Watch. If you leave your Apple Watch at home, it's going to send you a notification it's been disconnected. And we're praying that's exactly what the scenario is. She was just separated from the phone and she's still in good health. But there again, even if she's not in good health, that pacemaker should still be communicating with that phone. So either way, I think it's just a distance.
So Bella is a surgery nurse and says that you can be away from the home pacemaker. Do you mean for 4 to 7 hours? Is that what you mean? The transmitter would be in the home, but I'll let people read. The transmitter would be in the alarm, but the smartwatch ledge is connected to the transmitter and Bluetooth device. Okay. 4 to 7 hours, you mean?
Thing and not a bad situation we're praying.
It's easier said than done. And I know you're in the business of finding people when they're missing, and you think of where she is, Tucson, Arizona. It's not like she was living in a mountainous region off the grid. She's in a relatively decent sized city, metropolitan area, just, regionally in that part of the country. When it comes to like license plate readers.
Okay. So if it can be away from it for 4 to 7 days, that means they absolutely disconnected it somehow, because obviously it wasn't 4 to 7 days later.
Different sorts of electronic monitoring devices that law enforcement may have. Like what type of access could law enforcement have to technology that could help them in this case if they are following leads and they just aren't letting us know about them?
So as a law enforcement officer, the first thing I'd want to do is do a tower dump of the cell phone tower. I want to know every phone that was connected to that tower during that period of time. Now, if these alleged perpetrators were smart, they had no electronic devices on them that would have traced or tracked them. The second thing, like you had mentioned, the license plate reader. Any vehicle.
Nope. Thank you very much for this, Danielle. Thank you, Jared. Everybody here is wonderful. Yes, don't we have an awesome flock of black sheep here, I would say. And everyone, like and subscribe again if you're here. I'm almost live every night. I won't be live this Sunday night because of the Super Bowl, but most other nights, I'm absolutely live. Thank you again, Danielle. You're the best. Glad you got your daily dose of Maureen here.
People coming and going out of that area, I would be downloading those and running those tags. But I think the most important thing is that cell phone. If these people were careless enough to have a cell phone device on them or any other electronic device that uses cellular data, it could potentially show you who that person is. And law enforcement isn't going to share this. They're going to keep this close, tight to the vest, because this could be their only lead to try and find her alive, hopefully.
When it comes to, I think of the blood, and there's blood on the outside of the house. We don't know what that's from. It's interesting, like the sheriff will say that they have DNA and it's DNA related to Nancy Guthrie, but then won't go specifically into blood and whether that was the DNA that they were taking. But if it is, that blood on the front of the house, if that is related to this, and it's not from someone who maybe had a bloody nose a couple days ago or something like that, what can that tell you?
Potentially, it depends whether their blood type, their DNA is in a database somewhere, if they're a known criminal, or there's other databases for DNA. Everybody submits DNA to these applications where they find their loved ones. So there's a lot of public databases for DNA. And it's just not just criminal databases, like I said, public databases. So that's one thing. And the other thing, it would indicate that she's been hurt. The good thing is that there's not tons of blood. Maybe she suffered a cut. Older people have very thin skin. So maybe they grabbed her and was rough with her and caused some type of abrasion on her arm. And she's still able to survive that.
Yeah, and you hope that she is, you just hope she's alive. Part of this story now, we're 3 days, 72 hours. I mean, what is what's the timeline, at this point, for law enforcement in terms of the pressure that they're feeling as the days go on? We know about the medication and the belief that if she doesn't have this medication within 24 hours, that it could be fatal or well past that deadline. But even for law enforcement, when it comes to just finding someone, I know in murder cases, it's the first 48 hours we hear about, but in a missing persons case or a case where someone may have been taken from their home, like what is the timeline for law enforcement where the heat really gets turned up as time goes on?
First 48 hours is a great standard. Get in there, try to find them as soon as you can. Anything after that you need, and I am highly surprised based on the reports that I've seen that they pulled back the search and recovery teams to try and locate her, because honestly, there's a possibility, and we've seen it in our cases. We've recovered 2 homicide victims before where they were disposed of. So I'm praying that that is not the case in this scenario. But the fact is that it happens. Where are you going to take an 83-year-old lady? Where are you going to maintain her at? Is this a kidnapping? Is this something bigger than a kidnapping? Maybe these people who decide to say, oh, I kidnapped her, just hoping that they would get some money out of it, and it have no relation to this whatsoever. Kidnappings don't typically end well. There's very few successful scenarios where money is exchanged, the person comes back healthy. And I pray that that is not the case here. And this is very puzzling. Honestly, if our team had been closer, we would be out there right now assisting, trying to look to see if there's anything we can find, because we've done it before. God leads us to help families just like this, even in high profile cases.
In cases like this, because it just feels, there's certainly, I understand the attention that it's getting because Savannah Guthrie is such a recognizable person and her mom is a recognizable person. She would be on the Today Show regularly, but just in terms of kind of the facts as we know them, an 84-year-old woman, she lives alone, for her to be taken from her house in the middle of the night. I guess how often have you seen stories like this in your line of work?
I have never experienced an elderly person being kidnapped like this before in my line of work. We have seen people who have an episode and they leave their home, and maybe it looks like that situation, and they did it under their own will and their own power. But for somebody to be taken like this, we had one scenario like this, but it was somebody that knew the victim, took the victim, harmed the victim, and disposed of the victim, and we were able to locate the victim. Typically, it's somebody who has an interest, somebody that's going to benefit from going through all of this work, if you will, to do this. It has to be planned. They had to know when she's going to be home, how to get in, where to locate her at, and the best way to get out of there, including knowing that there's cameras there, disabling those cameras, and not potentially leaving any DNA to get out of there. Fingerprints, DNA, sightings by neighbors, vehicles, LPRs. I mean, think about it this. What if they didn't have a tag on the car? The LPR wouldn't have picked them up. If they didn't have a cell phone, it's not going to hit the cell phone tower. So they're eliminating their evidence if they understand the process to find people.
Well, and I just think too, like, obviously the most important question that needs to be answered is, where is Nancy Guthrie and is she okay? Those questions, but also at the same time, just like, why? There's just this question of like, why would someone do this?
And again, considering she doesn't have the meds that she needs, and that apparently it's very dangerous for her to be without them for a day. We're on 4 days now. The hope of a positive outcome here seems pretty low to me, unfortunately, at this point. But what do you think, chat? Do you think there's going to be a surprise that she gets? Because, let's put it this way. The longer she goes without the medicine, the worse and worse it'll be. It's already too long without the medicine.
Doesn't appear from anything we've heard that this was a robbery. To just take this woman who obviously has some health issues as well. There's so much that just doesn't make sense. And you just hope for this family that there can be a happy ending to this story. And we're going to continue to watch it closely. Billy Lane, founder of We Are the Essentials. It's always great to have you on Law and Crime. Can you talk a little bit about your group and the work that you do?
Yeah, so we feel that we're led by Christ to go out and help families locate missing loved ones. We do this free. We're all licensed private investigators, former law enforcement, former military. We contact families of missing loved ones, and we go out, do searches, ground searches for recoveries and hopefully rescues. If anybody would love to hear about us, we donate our time. We're not paid for what we do. We do this because we believe in what we do. You can visit wearetheessentials.com, where you can learn more about our mission.
That's pretty cool to these guys. I'm glad we actually saw this. So We Are the Essentials. They look for missing loved ones for free just because they think it's the right thing to do. So apparently they're on the case here also, trying to find Nancy Guthrie. So I'm all for that. They're made up of veterans. Apparently they're maybe religiously affiliated too, perhaps. But hey, I think that's awesome.
God puts it on your heart. Please make a small donation that'll help us help the next family.
All right, Billy Lane, private criminal defense investigator. Thank you as always for taking the time to be with us in Law and Crime. We appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
If you or anyone has information on Nancy Guthrie, contact the Pima County Sheriff's Department at 520-351-4900. That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify, and now you can find episodes of On the Case on Peacock. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to end it for tonight. We went over a lot of content, a lot of stuff to digest here, but we got a new case on our hands. So we'll be going over this whenever there's new information. And I have a feeling there's going to be some new information on this very soon. And yes, Kat, I do like Cream. What's the main song that they do? Cream classic rock. Encore indeed. Glad I found this guy. Yeah, they're good people. They're good people. I think more people wish they knew about them. So by all means, they should be watching them, right? They're doing good work. Because where else is someone going to volunteer their time for no money just because they think it's the right thing to do? In this day and age, that is super rare So I'm all for that for sure. You too, Addis. Glad you found us here. Addis talks about some of this stuff too, I saw. You got it, Danielle. But everyone, white in a white room with black curtains. I know that song. But everyone, Jay, I'm glad Jay found us here tonight too. Prayers for Nancy. I believe in that. I believe in prayers, sending good vibes. I mean, at the very least, hopefully whatever happened to her wasn't too painful, right? That's what I would say. So not Addie or Adi, Addie or Adi. Well, we'll get it at a point. And thanks for all your good points in here too, Bella. I appreciated your surgical nurse expertise here. Thank you, Jay. I appreciate that too. And again, I'll be back around tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Eastern. That's usually when I start. And then it says, wish me luck at actually getting around to sleeping tonight. You'll be okay, Livin. You'll get there. Thank you, Shorty. Sofa Sleuth, they call her. S-Dubs. Glad she found the channel too. But all right, everybody. You have a great rest of your night. And we'll be back again tomorrow night. Pray for justice indeed.